Looks like we're live. Damn, Clint's on the ball, man. That post almost hit before I actually went live. Man, how'd you do that, bro? Damn. That's almost scary. I guess you could pretty much do the damn thing from there. You already posted to the podcast for it as a podcast. Wow, that's crazy. And now I'm getting notifications. Good deal. All right, you know the drill. Let me get these links shared. We can talk a little bit. Probably not going to be going to 11 tonight for sure. I'm tired and definitely going to try to do a little preparing for this weekend. We're going to talk about wine making and brandy making. So I have to add brandy to that so it doesn't piss off all the people that say this is the distillation page. So yeah, we'll try to keep them happy by bringing that into the conversation. Well, yeah, we got to bring in the distilling into the fold because I don't know. I guess I could change the name of the damn podcast that day: distilling and brandy making and wine making. For those that get butt hurt, if you wander off topic a little bit, it's still alcohol. You know, it's still, and you got to make wine to make brandy. So I don't understand why the dude got all been out of shape. People just gotta looking for a reason, I guess. People that get butt hurt over the simple things like that, they just live their life looking for controversy, looking for something to complain and whine and bitch and moan about. Man, it's just must be such a miserable life. You know, I can't imagine. But enough bitching and whining and moaning about them. Don't want to be a hypocrite now. But I hope everybody is having a good week and getting used to the Tuesday, Super Tuesday show. It is taking little adjustments, but it gives me a little more time during the week. So, you know, when it was on Wednesday, it's like 2 days later, it's Saturday. So it's Tuesday makes it a little more distance before Saturday, but from Saturday to Tuesday seems real close now. So it was, you know, there's an odd number of days in the week, so it's going to be, you know, one way or the other anyway. So might as well be that way. But let me get these links shared. Let me get into it. Hit some questions. Hopefully, we'll get some questions asked tonight. And did a little bit of research on winemaking and of course, you know, you really can't talk about winemaking if you don't talk about, well, I want to get in depth of that conversation until it's time, but until you talk about maturing a wine and what it involves and what actual, you know, chemical processes are taking place, and we've talked about that a little bit in you know, in spirits too. It's the same principle. It's the same thing happening, you know, in aging our spirits is aging wine. It's just happening in a barrel instead of a bottle. But you can age in a bottle the same way, your spirits. So it just doesn't pick up the oak characteristics and all that. So we don't bring that into the mix. But let me get these links shared. It's hard for me to focus on two things at once. I'm not real good at that. Gotta kind of try to focus on one thing at once, man. It's oh no, wait, no, I didn't mean to do that. They got a live going on, damn it. Delete post, delete post, delete. There. Shit. I didn't realize they had a live going on. So I posted it and it popped up. Shit. Sorry about that. One thing I don't like to do, what the hell have I done here? How did that happen anyway? I'm not quite sure I got to that page anyway. Because it's not a page I normally post to anyhow. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to do that. Oh man, feeling okay today. Not my best day. I've been staying up late playing this new game out, Arc Raiders. For those of you like playing games, it's pretty fun. PvP, PvE type of game. It's a lot of fun. Helps keep your mind sharp, playing these games and doing these things. That's one of the things I like about it. It helps keep your mind sharp. Start getting old, you don't want to remain in neutral, man. You got to keep them gears moving, or they kind of seize up on you, man. So you always got to try to continue thought processes and always be thinking, or else you just idle mind. That's the devil's workshop, so they say. So you got to keep that mind working. What's going on Mark's channel? Oh, that's JB's post there. I've been noticing a lot of posts lately about a lot of these third world, distilling, and it's I love it because it's as true to moonshining as moonshining ever was in America, and it's still alive there more so than here. We're now home distillers. We're really technically not moonshiners in the technical sense, because these people are just utilizing whatever they can. We're buying beverage stills and using kegs and things like that. These people are innovative and use and a lot of old world stuff. You can see some of these stills they're using. Some of them are 150 years old, man. They're just ancient and just works of art. And uh, Pop and Bates been talking a lot about tinning, and I've been doing a little research on tinning. I'm like, why the hell would somebody want to tin, a nice copper pot and all this? And then so I started doing research on it, and it because of maintenance, and even these old oxidized pots, it's the maintenance involved, and the green, and dealing with the oxidation on your copper and your copper sulfites and stuff. So um, they they tin it, and you don't have to worry about the acid building up and etching and you know turning your copper. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I was trying to figure out why they would do that to such a nice copper pot, and I was thinking of flavors. They want to retain some of the sulfur. Sometimes that sulfur is not necessarily a bad thing when you're aging and stuff. Some of the red wines and stuff, have some sulfurous flavors, and a little bit can be okay and sweet. Too much is horrible. So kind of a delicate balance there. But yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff, and I love watching these old videos of some of these third world countries and seeing some of the um, things that they're making. It's amazing. They're doing awesome things, and the way they, some of them showing how they line. I can't see your comments yet, so just bear with me while I'm posting these links. But uh, it's interesting how they, in some countries they line their pots with like hay or leaves. They got like big banana leaves that they'll line the inside of the pot with, and then they'll pour big chunky mixtures in on it, not the liquid mash like we're used to seeing. I mean, this is mash and all. It's like they're distilling on the grain, on the fruit, and it's amazing, how they can do that without scorching, right? And you'd think, wow, so only the liquid is seeping through the leaves or the straw or whatever. And in some cases, botanicals, so I guess you could take lavender or whatever and line it if you wanted to get, that floral gin or something that you wanted to make. It'd be pretty interesting. So that's what they're doing, and it's very interesting how they're able to do that without a brew bag. There we have to have a brew bag, and they're lining it with hay and stuff. And when they're done, they got this little hoist, lifts up their pot, takes it over. They got this, you know, I guess dunder pit where they dump the back set, and I guess they may ferment there. I don't know. I don't know the language, so I can't translate the videos, but it looks like what's going on. So it's amazing. And I think they reuse the straw from that pit to reline the net, another still. It's pretty cool stuff. So I don't know if everybody got a chance to watch Miss Pratt on Still Talking last night, but that was a very interesting podcast. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, you should definitely try to tune that in. They're on YouTube. I think they might stream over to few of these. I don't know, but Still Talking with Sean Rigsby and Big Easy and Matt and all. Yeah, Joey, Uncle Joey. Yeah, they're awesome. But they introduced and interviewed Mina Pratt yesterday. Very interesting. She's very knowledgeable. She was on Master Distiller season 2 and maybe 3 or 4 when they had. She's been on there a couple of times. She's very interesting. She's very knowledgeable gal. Very charming. Yeah, she's a sweetheart for sure. Very smart. I hope this thing goes through. Don't cut me off. Damn it, I knew it was going to do that. Shit. I'll have to post that again later. This is from the larger groups. Anywho, what's going on, everybody? Let's see. I got to scroll back here and say, hey, what's going on, Moonshine John? He's got your distillery license in Texas. Awesome. Oh, I love it, brother. That's awesome news, man. So you gotta keep up with us, man. Let us know your progress and what's going on. And if you got questions, maybe ask them. Hell, before long we might be asking you. But we're all learning and helping each other here. So we definitely want to be a part of your startup and of your growth. So keep us in touch, man. And definitely stay up with us. Let us know what's going on. It's definitely good to see that you got. So we're gonna have some questions for you, right? So a lot of people, uh, have the same questions. What all's involved in going legit? I know it's different state to state. There's a federal thing that's fairly easy, from what I hear, but going from state to state, it varies so much. I mean, it's unbelievable how much it varies state to state. It's almost to the point where we need to nationalize that. And you don't hear me saying that very often because I'm big pro state right, but I think there needs to be some kind of commonality in the distilling industry in all the states, because some states it's just extremely prohibitive, and some states, man, they'll just say, yeah, what, they almost, we'll just write you a check if you want to start a distillery. They'll be throwing money at you, whatever. So it's varies so much in how inventory is handled, even. Some states you're forced to sell your inventory to the state. And then if you want to, get some for yourself, you have to buy it back from the state, right? Or if you want to, send it to a different distributor in another state, you got to buy it back from the state to redistribute it, right? It's crazy. It's just, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And there's a lot of states that are like that. So you basically sell to the state and the state sells for you and they set your price. It's just like this right here. This Weller, I can go to Ohio and get that bottle for about 30, $40, and, in Kentucky, it's 50, $60. It's a lot more expensive here just because they basically established the price up there. And so that's kind of, yeah, it's weird. So definitely want to keep up with you, brother, and congratulations. That's a good Christmas present. So what's I know that bourbon's a hard thing to do, and unless you get the pre-made, MGP product. Uh, so a lot of people, when they first start, they'll go with like a vodka or a gin or something that you can bottle and sell without the aging process, because it's going to take a couple of few years before you can have your first bourbon out, right? So you know the best plan is to have some kind of neutral spirit or something that you can sell right off the tap, and get some income flow and generation while you age, because everybody always wants to do bourbon and whiskeys and stuff, and that really leaves a large segment of the market open, for a lot of other things, because there's so many people that they get in the business. It's bourbon and whiskey, and it's You see a lot of small bourbon and whiskey places going out because it's kind of hard to compete with those big guys, you know. Yeah, that's great, man. And definitely join the DIY Shine and Steel Building page, man, and post pics of your setup, and we can talk in there about your progress, and definitely look forward to talking with you about all this, man. That's awesome. What's going on, Bernardo? Good to see you, brother. Happy holidays to you, my friend. Thanks for dropping in. What's up, JJ? Yeah, are you a fellow raider? Yeah, it's fun. Arc Raiders, man, it's a pretty good game. I've got tired of the Call of Duty thing. I've been playing Warzone for a long time, for years and years. I've started gaming. Hell, I was a semi-pro at one time when I was young, but that's before the pro actually paid money. Now they you make millions playing the games, right? It's crazy. But back then, it was totally different. It was you didn't make money at it. It was just for fun. But yeah, I played COD forever. There's just so much cheating involved. It's just very frustrating. Going into a game where you should be dominating, right? And people have hacks. They can see you through walls, and they got aimbots. And it's not for this podcast, but it's very frustrating. But it's a fun game for those that do like that. Send me a message, and we can hook up a game and get us a group going if y'all like that. There's a few I do with already, so it's pretty good. Yeah, third rock from the sun, aren't we? Yeah, third planet, country's third world from the sun. Yeah. Hey, Leah, how are you this evening? Good evening to you, and happy holidays to everybody out there. So let's see. Let me get through the greetings here, and then we'll start talking about whatever. Oh, we've got a question. Awesome. Absolutely. Cracked corn is basically yellow dent number two corn. It's a field corn. It's grown and developed for starch content, not sugar content. And all animals, humans included, have natural enzymes in our bodies, just like we have that, like the amylase and stuff that we have. We actually have amylase in our spit. There's actually tribes out there that ferment with spit. They convert sugars and starches to sugars with saliva, right? It's kind of gross thinking, but it's something that they do. Like the women of the tribe will come up, and they'll ceremoniously hawk up a big one right into the this ferment, and it's pretty crazy, but that's how they break down the starches, and but the corn is definitely designed for starch content, and our stomachs convert that into the sugars that we need to feed our systems and our cells, and it's just yellow dent number two field corn. It's all pretty much the same. um, so it's I get a lot of people now use that animal grade. It's not an animal grade. When you look at a field, it's a field of corn. It does not know its destination. It could be, Martha White cornflower, or it could be feeding the sheep. So it just depends on who buys it, and you know. Now I will say, be cautious when you buy food. I hate saying food grade, but food intended corn or something bagged and packaged for animals, because sometimes they will add vitamins and nutrients for the animal to help supplement their diets, right? So just make sure that you're getting just a pure cracked corn, just no nothing added, no pellets or no nutrients or fortified. Look for fortified. Don't want fortified anything. So yeah, but yeah, it's all the same, and a lot of people, and it's a good question, because a lot of people are like, "Ooh, that's animal grade, right?" Because that's the way it sounds. It's like that's not for human consumption, but it's not, it's the same, and it's good to ask, because a lot of people don't buy it for that reason. They're like, "Well, where can I get the human cracked corn?" And it's like, you just have to buy whole kernel corn and run a grinder if you want to be human and be the human grinding it. But I do recommend getting a grain mill. And right now is a great time to buy one. Bever has one. I don't know if they're still on sale. It's a $209 grain mill, 3,000 watt. Pretty good setup, dry and wet. We were talking about that Saturday. Pretty good deal on one. I got one Wayfair or somebody a few years ago. It was, yeah, you didn't. I didn't expect to see that at Wayfair, but they had like a 2,700 watt one, not quite as big as his Fever, but I got it for like 160, $70, and it's normally about 260 or 70. So, and I think this Fever one's probably around a $300 one normally. So it's a pretty good value if they're still on sale to get one. But I'd recommend getting that because the corn kernel has a husk on it that protects it and holds that moisture in and keeps that corn fresh for a much longer period of time than a crack. Crack is oxidizing. It's been opened up. All the starches are exposed to air and they're beginning the oxidation process and they're breaking down. So if you can get whole kernel corn is the best if you have a grain mill, and that way you can crack your own. And a lot of people just buy the crack, and a lot of times it's not cracked finely enough, so they'll run it through a grain mill anyway, right? So, or a blender like I used to do, or food processor or whatever, to break it on up a little finer, if it's not got a good crack on it. But yeah, it's but do look at the contents and in the ingredients and make sure. Well, it's definitely interesting and it's a lot of fun. You should watch last night's podcast on Still Talking. This Mina Pratt is on there, and lady in distilling, very knowledgeable, and she's a shooting star right now in the industry. Man, she's definitely going places, and she's very knowledgeable. Makes a lot of she delves a lot in hydrosols and essential oils and gins and things of that nature. So that's awesome too. It's but definitely it's a good podcast to watch. If you don't watch those guys, you should definitely watch them on Monday nights. They have some really good people in there. What's going on, Conway family? I got some Conways. Actually, my cousin married a Conway, so we got some Conways in the family. Liquid Wizard. That's good to see, brother. Up in the Pacific Northwest. Well, we got a lot of people. We had some people last week. It was Saturday. It was like, who here's on the West Coast? About five or six. Right, we don't have any people here on the West Coast. And about five or six people chimed in like, I think we do. So we got them from all over on here. Yeah, Clint and his autocorrect, man, it's funny. For those who don't know, Clint's doing this on a phone, and man, he can type these answers in, and man, it'd be like word soup for me. With my big fat fingers on the phone, it's always double striking, and it never autocorrects unless it's something that I don't want it to, that I'm intentionally spelling that way, or a bad word, right? Well, it's just the way the laws deal with it, and taxes. Taxes have a huge impact on it. Each state, of course, there's a federal cut tax, but each state taxes it differently, and each state regulates it differently. So it's really strange how, like in Ohio, for example, you sell all your product to the ABC stores and the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, and they buy all your alcohol, and you have to warehouse it, but they buy it. You sell it to them at a discounted price, right? And they buy it, and you have to store it, and they sell it, and you have to, you know, distribute it. It's really weird the way it happens, and every state's different, so it's really tough. And those rules regulations, you can get Kentucky whiskeys up there and bourbons cheaper than you can get them here in Kentucky. Crazy, right? So yeah, it's very interesting. And some states are very lenient and easy to get, a distiller's license in, and other states are very difficult. Some states it's legal to home distill, and there's certain regulations that of course have to follow. But in some states, prohibit it to the fullest extent of the law, and actually actively go out there and seek, home distillers still, like it's back in the prohibition days or something. It's crazy. North Carolina comes to mind. They've got ALE, alcohol law enforcement, basically, and it's they have to justify their position, so they're actively pursuing anyone in the state that's distilling, and they're probably watching this now, and it's I'm not knocking them. They got their job to do. It's as long as it's in the law, they got to do it, right? But we do need to get laws changed, and yeah, it's a little different in South Carolina, but maybe is it maybe it's South Carolina that it's one of the Kakalakis. I don't know if it's north or south, but I'm thinking north. Uh, that's a strict, but maybe south as well. I'm not sure, but I know that they're strict on it in both of the Kakalakis. But yeah, it's definitely. Oh, you're fine. Hey, well, we're here for questions. Any question you got, yeah, I'm long winded, so if you have a question, I'm liable to hit on it eventually. I'll cover about everything about it, and eventually, hopefully, I'll answer it. If not, Clint's got my back. What? I don't know what that's about, brother. There's someone. I don't know, man. You definitely don't want that, man. Yeah, yes, I agree. Some do and some don't. Yeah, I got people call me Joey. People that know me from my childhood call me that. Well, somebody call me Joey in here. I got somebody from some old friend knows me. That'd be cool. What's going on, Henry? Yeah, I'm Joseph. Everybody, but my childhood friends call me Joey still, and that doesn't bother me. Some people, call me Joseph. I'm Joseph now. I don't have to worry about that. You're not going to demasculate me by calling me Joey. I'm not a little kangaroo, so I don't have to take offense to it. How's it going, Henry? Good to see you, brother. Heck yeah. Anybody got questions, ask them. If we can't answer, we'll find you. We'll find the answer for you. I know, and it's I'm trying to find people that live close to barley, a lot of barley farms, because the barley farms here in Kentucky, the ones that do grow it, they're locked in. They don't sell a bit to anybody else. They're selling it to, Heaven Hill, or, you know, one of these big distilleries around here, and they contract it all out. It's all said and done. So they have no excess. And, so it's hard for me. I can buy my wheat, which failed to get up at that guy, man. I know it's too late, but I'm going to be paying more for that this year. But um, I can buy my wheat cheap, cheap, and corn cheap, cheap. But barley, is rye's a mixed bag, But barley, it's still pretty costly because I don't know any farmers that I can go visit and buy bags and throw in my trunk and bring them home. Well, awesome, John. Definitely, man. Try this Arc Raiders out. It's a pretty cool game. I think there's a free or a discounted version, a deluxe version. I don't think it's a free to play. And I think being a not free to play eliminates a lot of cheaters. So, they don't want to get banned and have to pay again. So, and I think most of them are just sticking with COD and Battlefield. So hopefully they stay there. But it's a pretty fun game. It occupies the mind, and it's pretty cool. I'm enjoying it. What's going on, brother Chris? What are you up to, brother? How are things up there in the Great White North, man? He's right on the Canada border, man. It's colder than hell up there. It was 4 here the other night, or was it yesterday morning? Yeah, 4 degrees, man. Jeez, Pete, it's cold. It's hard on the old man. All this cold. Well, you gotta, I know a lot of people the same way, man. And trust me, they're there. They're just not vocal. They're just doing their thing at home, and their little circle of friends know about it, and that's about the extent of it. It's kind of tight-lipped thing. We're a little bit more loose-lipped about it because that's the only way we can educate, right? We can't. We try to do it in a private setting, on Facebook and behind private walls, but people still they get in there, and I don't care. I mean, most law enforcement, they enjoy a drink too, so they're not, they're just doing their jobs, and so, but there are legal places that do it legally, so that's who we're educating, right? So, but I'm just here to contribute to your delinquency, man. But yeah, once you get in there, man, talk about it. Join the group, join the DIY Shine and Steel Building group, and we get in there, and you can, talk. You probably meet some people in your area, and we probably have people in your area right now here on the podcast listening. So, uh, if you want to talk to them on the side, or start emailing each other or Facebook friend each other, and get a little thing going, it'd be awesome, because it's a good family. We meet a lot of people at the festivals. Is one of our best meeting grounds, and we bring them into the militia and into the community, and it's a lot of fun. Going to all the different festivals, and sitting and being able to share a drink that you made with them, and this is my root beer you see me drinking, and they get to try that. And here's my grappa, and oh, you got to try my gin, or my brandy, or whatever. Yeah. Uh, so yeah, it's but yeah, this weekend, really, we're going to be talking about winemaking and brandy making. So, of course, it can't be a distilling channel if we don't talk about distilling the wine. But we're going to talk about how to make a good wine, and some finer wines, and about the aging process, and the what goes on with the esterification, the oils, and the organic acids, and the phenolics and stuff. It's pretty interesting, the what the aging process does, how it takes some of the astringency of the alcohol, the bite, right, from the alcohol out, and mellows it and gives it some unique flavors. And the same thing in barrels. So we'll talk a little bit about barrel aging as well. But it should be a pretty good podcast this weekend, And then, of course, during the Christmas season, we're probably going to not be here next Tuesday. I got to play Santa, and do a few pre-Christmas visits for some friends, and play Santa for them and their kids, and so that should be a lot of fun too. So we're gonna probably, let me pull up my calendar here. So 20th will be this weekend. Will be the 20th. That'll be our wine making. We're not going to be here next Tuesday, the 23rd, and the 27th Saturday we will be back. And that'll be kind of our uh, Tuesday the 30th we'll probably do our New Year's celebration. It's actually going to be a night before New Year. I guess Wednesday's New Year's Eve. So we'll do a little New Year's Eve partying on here Tuesday night on the 30th. Probably have a few drinks, and cut up a bit, and then go hopefully spend time with family and friends. Happy holidays to you, brother. What's going on, Brian? Good to see you, brother. Let's see. Hey, I'm not too far behind. All right, that's good. I'm keeping up. I'm keeping up. What's up, Shadow? Good to see you, brother. Happy holidays, my friend. Awesome. Hicker Kings. Good stuff, man. That's, for those that don't know, it's a really good white corn. Um, very, very, very good heirloom corn. It's used a lot, and a lot of people use it in their red, white, and blue. So they'll get a Bloody Butcher, or a Jimmy Red, preferably a Jimmy Red. A lot of people tend to go with the Jimmy Reds and the Hickory King, and then Ohio Blue, or and make a red, white, and blue corn. It's very interesting. Get the sweetness of the white and the blue with the earthiness of the red, and makes for a really good combination. But yeah, you can't go wrong with Hickory King. That's for sure. That's awesome. I usually just stick with the old yellow dent #2. You know, I've got to try to fill up some barrels. I got a couple of 15-gallon barrels I'm going to fill up, and then I can just kind of maintain after that. After I get the barrels filled up, my thoughts are I can just, as I drink a quart or two out of it, I can pour a quart or two back in. So I can just distill in a smaller and just keep it filled up and kind of that do that thing after a year or so, just kind of keep it going, perpetuate it. And that's I'm gonna have one brandy and one bourbon. And that should do pretty well. What's up, Bash Brothers? Good to see you. That's awesome, man. That'll make you some killer red, white, and blue. That's it's a great combination. Tom does it. Quite a few other people are doing it. Philby does it. I think Philby may have been the first one that I saw that did the combo, and it's a patriotic blend, right? But the old red, white, blue, and it's great for 4th of July and red, white, blue, moonshine. It's just can't get more American than that, man. What's going on, Richard? Good to see you, brother. We're just chilling, brother. How you been? Yeah, Jimmy Red's the way to go. Bloody Butcher is I find Bloody Butcher works well sour mashing because after like the first generation or two, you get a lot of that heavy earthy out, and then it's pretty, it mellows out considerably. In fact, for the last month, I've been drinking on Jeff's Bloody Butcher sour mash, wheated sour mash, and it's real good. It's not real earthy at all. I'm needing a drink. Getting a little scratchy in my throat. I got to kill that right now. I can't have that. Kill that. Yeah, anytime you get a scratchy throat or something tickling your throat, or you need to drink liquor or some hot coffee, something real hot will kill it. Liquor will kill it, but if you can do that, you don't have to worry about getting sick, right? Yeah, I can feel it. Something trying to take hold. I might have to punch that out with some grappa here. Let me get some 130 proof. Take care of that shit real quick. Hold on, I'll be right back. Yeah. Get some of this grappa. Man, this is so good. Cheers, everybody. I wish I had enough of this for everybody, man. I tell you. So good. So sweet. Yeah. Dancing. Is that Dancing Star? Or I think is that who he gets his from? Good stuff. I tell you what, there's something else about this. Because I can drink regular 130 proof anything, and I've been drinking at 145 Bloody Butcher Sour Mash mix. But this at 130, I don't know, it hits me hard, man. It gets you tipsy real damn quick. Is it Dancing Star that he gets from? Good stuff. I think that's where it comes from. Oh, not sure about. Oh yeah, you talking about Northwest up there? Yeah, it's dangerous in a lot of these places, man. Sure is. It's we try not to talk too much about politics and stuff, but it safety shouldn't have to be a political issue, whether you're safe or not. And when it does, how messed up is that? Wine pods, yeah, I was trying to figure out what you're talking about. I was like, what the hell are we talking about? I thought you were talking about it. Then we were talking about Pacific Northwest, and I know up there it's a lot of riots and a lot of things going on, a lot of turmoil. It's I thought maybe that's something you talking about Gen Z and all that. I was just misassociated that. Oh, so it is somebody. Damn, I hit the wrong button every time. Somebody different now. Okay. I was trying to think of one of his major providers. I don't know if it's Dancing Star. Maybe that's who does some on the Moonshiner show. I can't remember. But I was thinking, I don't know. I'll have to check it out. See, I was thinking Dancing Star though was one of his big suppliers up there. Probably not speaking loud enough for that microphone. But yeah, Jimmy Red's good. It's good red corn. It's what I prefer out of the two reds. Oh, it's wine pods. Did I miss a wine pod? Did I miss somebody say something about wine pods? Yeah, and it's all opinion. Some people love that Buddy Butcher. Some people love earthy. It's nothing wrong with it. Awesome, awesome. Yeah. Now, as far as this weekend, we're going to be talking about that, Richard. So, um, you can take just regular Welch's grape juice, and that you get at the store. You definitely want to make sure it's 100% natural without the preservatives or stuff, because if you have the preservatives in there, the yeast won't really take hold well, and it doesn't produce a good flavor because it stresses them instantly. Um, but he's talking about the wine podcast, not like not like Tide Pods and wine pods. Uh, he's talking about the podcast. So, we got, when you say talk about Tide Pods and wine pods, you never know. That is something that Gen Z would probably have, little wine pods that you just pop in your mouth and eat and drink, and maybe have a little detergent mixed with it or something. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it cracked me up. What's going on, Ray? Good to see you, brother. Hope y'all have a happy holiday. Yeah, I was thinking that's the Star Wars. Yeah, I can remember though. I think Tim. I think Tim and what's his buddy's name there at Climax Moonshine. I can't. I'm trying to think of the old man's name. That I think they get something from them as well. But he's a big producer, man. He does a lot of heirloom. It does. It makes a really good wine. I was shocked, and of course, you say that to some wine connoisseurs, and they just browbeat the shit out of you. But I've made some pretty good wine with Welch's and grapes. I use because grapes are expensive to try to just make a wine with just pure grapes, so it gets pretty costly. So if you can cut a little bit of corners by supplementing a lot of, and I go a high percentage of the actual grapes, right? But if you try to use just pure grape juice from the actual fruit, it gets very expensive. That's why you have to have a damn orchard to do it. That's the only way you can afford it. But you can supplement that with some 100% juice, and it doesn't really lose anything at all. And I've actually done it with just the Welch's grape juice. But you want to make sure you get the one that doesn't have any of the potassium metabisulfate or potassium sorbate or sodium sorbate. There's several different sodium benzoate. There's some preservatives they put in there you want to kind of steer away from. But those are the some of the worst offenders, I guess you could say, that really cause wine stress. And if you stress the wine, you might as well just forget it's a brandy. Right? It's going to be one of those brandies because it's not really going to really come out as a good wine if you stress those yeast and you get some. But I don't know. Sometimes You can get some interesting flavors out of a stressed yeast, but that's pretty complex um, distilling and mashing or musting. So I don't generally talk about stressing yeast intentionally because that's pretty complex, and you have to go the scientific method and know exactly how you're stressing it, to what level you're stressing it, and it's really on our level. There's no that way that we can range that and gauge it. So um, yeah, you don't want any ites or eights. All them ites and eights are bad, man. Yeah, it does. And it's the same with your jarred up moonshine, brandy or whatever. This grappa is now 3. And I've over the past year, it's definitely improved, man. It was great then, but it's even better now. And it's got this yellow flavor because of the tannins from the walnuts. That added a little bitter to the sweet. And oh god, it's so good, man. But it's adding some oils from those nuts too that are help estrifying. And of course, I get a little oxygen every time. I got to open it up every once in a while, take a little sippy sip to give it some oxygen. Man, man, that's so good. Definitely interesting. This is the natural sweetness of it, but it's still got that 130 proof bite to it. I like it. Brothers, hang around. There might be some more questions you can get asked that you didn't even know you wanted to know the answer to. But yeah, we're here every Tuesday and Saturday, except for next Tuesday. But thanks for joining us. Good to have you here. And yeah, any questions that you got, definitely bring them here, and we'll help you out. We'll get you up to going and improving on your distillates. And then wines. Now beers, not so much. I don't know a lot about that, so we'll have to refer to JJ and some of our other beer makers in the group. Yeah, it's I love the grappa, man, but it's a little expensive. Brandy's expensive to make, especially high fruit brandy, where you use mostly fruit. A lot of people will use a little bit of fruit and a lot of sugar and water. That's not technically a brandy. That's more of a flavored sugar wash, but it's still good. You're getting some flavonoids and stuff from polyphenols from the fruit. So that's a good thing. Uh, and that's something we're going to talk about. Resveratrol, which is one of the compounds in fruits and vegetables and grapes, especially um, that gives a lot of flavor, right? Brings in a lot of the flavor. You hear me talk about polyphenols and flavonoids and hydrosols and all these different things, and all these different things combined are what make wine and your our spirits age and improve over time. So these esterifications of oils and organic acids, all these things are happening in the jars, in the bottles, in the barrels, um, to improve things over time. So yeah, and shine especially. So when you run a batch of shine, a lot of people will leave it open, so they'll let it sit, and they let the more volatile things that want to evaporate off first. Now you lose some alcohol, but a lot of your higher volatiles will evaporate off. Some people will put a fish tank bubbler in there just to bubble air through it to stir it up, keep it agitated, and that speeds up the process a little bit, right? You keep breaking that surface tension, and you get more evaporation going, and uh, and you'll get and a lot of those volatiles are what gives a lot of the alcohol its astringent alcohol taste, acetones, and uh, you know a lot of those more volatile alcohols, and trying to think of the isopropyls and all those that are in there that help give it that bitter alcohol flavor. So once you get a lot of those off, you'll taste a sweeter ethanol, product, and it won't have that astringent, very strong flavor. Um, so and it helps. And then after a couple of days of that evaporating, you don't want to leave it that long, and then you start losing ethanol. But your proof will drop a little bit, but you'll lose some of that stuff that's really not that great. But if you're aging, some of that stuff that's not that great, some of those esters and some of those higher volatiles do actually break down into some pretty interesting flavors. So in those heads, there are some interesting flavors coming off. So that's the art of making cuts, is learning which of those coming off, being able to taste them and save those and discard others. you know, and that's why you see these people all cozied up and trying each, as it comes off, trying it, and they're getting a pretty good little buzz on, and they're trying all these different, and eventually oh, that's a good one. So they'll try to catch some of that ester, as it's coming off, and each, distillate will have those, and it's just hard to isolate them. That's why a lot of people, when you learn to make your cuts, start using small jars, right? Especially on small stills like what we have. Just use little jars, not shot glasses. I guess if you're out of air still, you could. It's one thing I will tell you about the air still, Rich. It's tough because it's tough to make cuts on when you have something that small. It's really tough. Um, when you have a little bit more volume coming out, it's the distinguishing differences between the fours, heads, the hearts, and the tails will be more distinguished the larger you get in your steels, and the closer you get towards fractional distillation. So we might talk a little bit this weekend about um, fractional distillation and vacuum distillation, because they on the podcast last night, me was talking about doing a lot of she does hydrosols and essential oils, and separating the oils and the water that has the essence of the flower and the flavonoids from the flowers, and it's also used in the marijuana industry. When they extract um, terpenes and THC and flavors and stuff, and all the compounds out of marijuana, they do the same thing, right? They leach it with alcohol because alcohol is a solvent for a lot of those oils and terpenes and THC and everything. So they leach it out of that, and then they have to separate that from the alcohol. So they use a vacuum distillation process, which is much like what a lot of people in the gin industry are starting to do. So it's kind of a new thing. It's been around for a little while, but you don't see a lot of distilleries doing it yet. But I've been researching it and reading up on it and learning about it for years and years now. Back when I first started, I think there's only like one or two distilleries in the United States that even dabbled in it. It's a pretty complex setup. But it's. Let me post a picture. Let's see. Here's a picture of it on a simplified basis. Now, this is definitely simplified, but it'll help you understand what's going on. Basically, what vacuum distillation is distilling under pressure, right? So we know what we do is at 1 atmosphere, right? We're on the surface of the planet. We got certain atmospheric pressure, and boiling point is pretty fixed. I guess as you go up higher in the mountains, it gets a little higher, but pretty much sea level boiling point what we deal with. But when you deal with plant matter and things like that, a lot of those are very sensitive to heat. So heat will break them down, degrade them, and ruin the flavors. Right, there are a lot of delicate flavors in some of these essential oils and hydrosols. So when you vacuum distill, you can distill at much lower temperatures, right? Because you've reduced the pressure, and when you reduce the pressure, it reduces the boiling point. Now we understand that alcohol is an azeotrope, and there's actually a point where you don't really break the azeotrope, but you've lowered the pressure to a point where it's easier to get closer to fractional distillation, and a lot of the fractional distillation does use vacuum. So that's also something that we may touch on, but it's a little more advanced. But basically, the process is right here. You see the glass and flask. You got your water bath. and this is probably, I don't know if this is not a rotovate, but you just basically, they got hot water. Is what they heat with instead of a Bunsen burner, which would focus a lot of heat on one area. This is more of a hot water bath, right? We don't need it that hot because we're decreasing the pressure, which decreases the boiling point. So that you can be able to put your finger in that water bath that's underneath that, but it'd be boiling the water that's inside there, right? And people just not that they don't understand that, because once you reduce the pressure, the boiling point of water goes way down. So you can boil water at 110 degrees at a specific pressure, right? People are not, that's foreign to them, right? It's hard for them to conceptualize that. But you have a vacuum over here. Now you see where it goes through the condenser and comes out in the receiver there. You have a vacuum pump, and that keeps a constant vacuum on this system, and it lowers the boiling point of this mash, must, whatever you wash you got in there, to a point where it's easier to fractionally distill, and it doesn't break down a lot of the good flavors and stuff that are typically broken down at the 195 200 degree distilling that we normally would do. So a lot of your brandies taste much fruitier, much better, because these what are they called, uh, anthocyanins is basically the flavors that you get out of these fruits, and the colors that you get from them. It's all, and the phenols that you get from them, and this preserves those, because they're basically bound to the OH. It's a hydroxide bond with the benzene ring, right? And they're bonded to that, and that's how, when I talk about when we distill, we want to help bring some of that water forward, because that water is where a lot of these polyphenols and stuff are bonded to, where a lot of your flavors and flavonoids and all this stuff is bonded to the water, because it bonds to it much better than it does the alcohol, but it does bond to the alcohol as well. But and when you lower the boiling point, you can preserve a lot of those unique flavors. So gins, all the floral gins, any botanical or anything botanical, anything with fruit, anything like that is definitely going to have a much stronger flavor. Not necessarily better, but definitely going to have a stronger flavor. Now, whether it's better or not depends on, of course, what you're using. But yeah, it's very interesting, and it definitely where the future's going. But it's a little bit more advanced, But um, I just want to kind of introduce that for a lot of people that have never seen it. This is a very simplified version. It gets very complex. It looks like and actually they use it in the oil refinery as well. So, they can lower the boiling point, make it a little safer. Also, it's going to be kind of green, because when you reduce that pressure, you reduce the amount of energy needed to heat your mash, right? So, that's saving you a lot of cost on heating your mash, just by lowering the pressure in there. So you're not only retaining a lot of flavor and get a lot more flavor out of it, it's green, technology. It's definitely it's gonna save you money in the long run on production costs. So you just want to make sure your vacuum uses less electricity than your elements, and I'm sure it does. But that's very interesting stuff, man. I've been interested in vacuum distillation for years and years now, because it's definitely going to be a big thing in the brandy and gin industry in the near future. It's coming, and I've been benefiting from watching a lot of the growth. It's very interesting. Awesome. Yeah, and it's amazing when you can taste the difference between the unaged and the aged, and run the same, recipe, and say, this is how it tastes coming off the tap, and this is how it tastes coming off a barrel, either rapid aged, or in a 5 for 8 months, or a 15 for a year or so. And it's like, wow, it adds so much flavor, that just the aging process will add 60 to 80% of the flavor that you get out of these. will come from the barrel in the aging process. So it's amazing the difference. And I think that's one of the hangups a lot of people have with moonshining and home distilling is a lot of people are drinking the raw product, the white dog, as they call it, and moonshine, right? And it's the harshest. And if you can make good moonshine, imagine how good it's going to be once it's aged. You know, most of the whiskeys and stuff that we like and the bourbons that we like taste like shit as a white dog. It's not good. It's not that great at all. It's not as good as ours, right? But the aging process adds 60 to 80% flavor, and that's what people kind of expect when they drink, right? When they drink, from the tap of that, they expect it to just instantly taste like, a whiskey or a bourbon or, a good quality vodka or something like that. It's just not going to happen until it's proofed down and aged. And, you know, sometimes some people cold filter, sometimes they use the evaporation process to get rid of some of the higher volatiles, like I was talking about earlier. But once you go through several of those processes, it's just steps of improvement, and it just keeps on getting better over time. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Fleischmann's, brother. I use that for many, many moons. But for wine now, I I have done it, but I like the floral notes that some of the wine yeasts give, and I like the fact that a lot of them are created to have a small yeast bed and hardly any flocculence at the bottom, so it doesn't build up a big, huge yeast bed and give a lot of yeast flavor. So definitely try. I'm real fond of the red stars, and I know there's a lot of different ones out there, and I haven't experimented with a lot of different ones, but I've tried some different ones, and I've kind of always come back to and I know they changed it. I don't think they even make the Premier Rouge anymore. I think they've got an upgraded yeast from that, but it's very similar. But the Premier Blanc and the Premier Rouge, and those really work well. I like both of those for reds and light colored fruits. But yeah, for white grapes, I like the Premier Blanc. It's what I used for this grappa. It just gives a real fruity, sweet, floral flavor that's just outstanding, man. It's really good, and the wine's real good too. But yeah, Fleischmann's I love for my thin mashes and for grains. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, about as good as any, even today. And there's still, boy, that bite, man. I gotta get that. Gotta kill that. That's the only way to do it right here. I haven't been drinking enough. That's what the problem is. That's what the problem is for sure. No, you can't go wrong with Fleischmann, man. I used it for ages. It's good. It's not just for breads. It's not just for pizza dough. Yeah, absolutely. And um, a lot of people, there's these stainless steel bubblers that they use in fish tanks and stuff, and I highly recommend getting one of those over the epoxy ones because you don't want to get the ones that have like the sand and epoxy because yeah, those break down. I've tried that and it just broke down and it ruined the liquor and it's like whoa, I didn't know. So they make stainless ones and try to use um, a good quality hose as well. You don't want to use just a rubber hose. You want a silicone based hose, and that doesn't break down either. But yeah, they have these, I guess, air stones that are made with stainless, and those are definitely the route to go. So try to stay away from the fish tank ones that are resin or I guess some kind of adhesive with sand base. It didn't work out well. So definitely try to use something, or you put the tube in there and let it bubble. It doesn't have to be tiny bubbles. The tiny bubbles helps, I'm sure, but um, Yeah, just keeping the surface tension broken up so you get more evaporation and more movement in it. It helps. A couple of days is all you need. It absolutely does, and it's just getting rid of those higher volatiles, that you can't fractionally distill off with a pot, but we can definitely get rid of them by letting it just naturally evaporate off, because those are the first things that evaporate off, and that the azeotrope doesn't have an impact because we're not trying to boil it off and separate it by boiling points, and it's just evaporation, and they do tend to evaporate off quicker than the ethanol. Yeah. And some of my wines, I've made some pretty high alcohol content wines too. Not like you, kind of accidentally, got a little bit too much in there, and like, well, let's just see what it does. You could add water, of course, and water the flavor, down a little bit. And of course, you're gonna, kind of lose some flavor that way. So I just like, let's see what happens. And I got some sweet heat. We call it sweet heat. It's a white wine, and it's like a mixed drink. It's strong as shit. What's going on, Carpenter? Good to see you, brother. I was wondering where you were. How things going on up there, brother? Yeah, and it's crazy. Here I can get, of course, I'm in Kentucky, so I get the once used 53s, I guess 55s, 53s, whatever they call them. 45 bucks, $50, right? Once used. And that might even have a little bit of liquor in them, right? So it's like there's $10 out there and liquor still in them. But yeah, the small ones are just as or more so expensive. So I got like $100. I think I bought mine directly from the lady that gets them, and I think she gets them from up north. So I mean, might be able to cross that border and get them. I don't know what will they get you for smuggling barrels if if you come across and get them. But I think you can probably pick them up in the States a little cheaper and maybe smuggle them across the border. I don't know how they are on that kind of thing. I guess if it's empty, they wouldn't have as much a say in the matter. But might open some curiosity. They might wonder what's going on. But yeah, I've got 100 into the 15s, and then I picked up a 5, and it was about the same price. So but it's the term, right? So a 5-gallon barrel is going to mature in 6 months, 8 months, whereas a 15 is going to be 8 months to 14 months, depending on. So I look forward to getting them filled up, man. I'm just going to have to get busy. So after the holidays are over, old Santa's going to be busier than ever. Yeah, they do. They're so used to finished liquors. I'll say finished because when it goes in the bottle, unless it's somebody just selling moonshine or white dog, it's a finished product. And that's why a lot of people, oh, I tried that Buffalo Trace white dog. That's horrible. Well, yeah, that's basically what they start with before they put it in the barrel. And it's not good. It's not even good moonshine. So that alone tells you, what we're doing is good. Some of the corn liquor we make and some of the grain liquor we make is much better than what they turn out on a large scale. And you put that in the barrel and age it, and you'll come out with some top shelf stuff. And some of us not so good. Some of us still need to go back to that drawing board. Oh, we got some beer maker here. Awesome. All right, now are you distilling this and making? Because I noticed you didn't say anything about beer. Oh, let's see. Oh, that's 10. Let me share this link with some of these pages I wasn't able to before. Because some of them are excellent pages I like to share with. Got my brother Brian's page. All right. Good deal. Let me see here. So, all right, looking at the beer making. So I noticed no hops going into that. So I'm assuming that you're maybe doing it to make a good whiskey, but no corn. So it's going to be pretty interesting. High wheat, so it's going to be sweet. Yeah, it's not something that you can easily do, especially if you're going to run down into your tails. I can get through I got the 18 and a half, so I can get through a 15-gallon run in about 4 hours if I just stop at the hearts, at the end of the hearts, and I hate doing that. Sometimes the time constraints just doesn't allow us to go any further. But I mean, what people don't understand is you can take that back set that has the tails in it still and just dump it in a barrel and save that and and redistill it and get a lot of that flavor out with as well, and just distill those tails out on all pretty much all tails run. So it's not going to be necessarily distilled tails. It's just going to be tails that are in the back set, right? So it's still going to have a lot of flavor getting carried over and all that water coming off during the tails and all the oils. So you can distill those off and save them later. If you want to just be lazy, or if you don't have time and you don't want to lose all that alcohol, because a lot of times we're stopping, the heart's breaking off at 190 proof, right? And there's a lot of alcohol in that, right? That's the same proof as a lot of bottles we buy off the shelf. So that's a lot of alcohol in there. It's almost half alcohol. So yeah, you can save that back set, dump it in a barrel, don't put it in anything copper, anything like that. Don't store it in that because it's going to eat it up because it's acidic. But yeah, put it in a big blue barrel or something and save it. You can redistill it later if you just don't have the time, and run it all out later when you do. But yeah, it's sometimes you got to do that, time management, and it doesn't affect anything because it's just tails that you're stripping off later, right? And you can run them pretty high and quick to get them worked off. Oh yeah, wheat liquor's good. I love wheated. 71B is good. Yeah, it's a good overall, good yeast, good floral notes. Yeah, when you got that reflex going on, you're going a little slower. And if you run, through the tails and with the way you're doing that, you're doing a lot of compressing and you're compressing a lot of those tails in there. So you're getting good alcohol out, and it's a gradual drop. And then all of a sudden, man, it just drops off the shelf when you do that. And you do compress a lot of tails into the hearts, but that's not a bad thing all the time. Everybody says, oh, you got a lot of tails mixed in that. Yeah. And in a few years, you know, if it's aged properly and if those are good, flavors in the oils that you're coming off there with. Yeah, it's good. What's going on, brother? I saw you, man. You've been cheating with another Santa, man. I tell you what, all those damn AI Santas are I'm gonna have to bring out the union. We're gonna just have a union stand against all these AI Santas, man. We gotta stamp them out, man. They're hurting us. Hope you and your family are doing well, brother, and have a Merry Christmas. Yeah, I got a good laugh out of that for the podcast. Yeah, yeah, you definitely want to. You can cold crash it. I'm not sure where you're at, but to help clear it, a lot of times people use finning agents, and in the wine industry and stuff. I mean, they'll use egg whites, so they'll use rice hulls, but cold crashing helps. So if you're in a cold environment, not freezing, but cold, it'll help. Drop that out. It'll help clear it up. It's called cold crashing. So it'll help clear it up for you, man. But yeah, that is a problem when you run. That's why I tell people when you do your grind and on your corn and on your grains, sometimes a lot of people just like to crush them so you can get to the good heart of the grain, but you don't pulverize it and powder it, right? Because powder, everybody's, oh, but you can get that high conversion if you grind it up fine. And that's like, yeah, you sure can. You can burn the hell out of it and scorch it too, because you're pouring in, milky, it's real milky going in, and more so than normal. But yeah, cold crashing is a way to do it. Um, but yeah, you can actually do like a wine. You can, and like a beer. You don't have to keep it on that grain forever. Once you get the sugars out of the grain, all the grain's doing after that is maybe adding some flavor. So you can do a secondary fermentation on a grain product just like you would a must, right? So, and getting it off that yeast bed will help change the profile, the flavor, because a lot of times having that yeast bed in there, big huge yeast bed, uh, especially if it's taking a little longer to do the fermentation process, where a lot of grains normally take 3 to 5 days in a controlled environment. Boom, bang, gone. It doesn't have time to settle, doesn't have time to sit on the yeast bed, so you don't really worry about these things. But as the time increases that it's being fermented, you're going to start get more impact of the yeast on that, and it's just going to change your flavor. It's going to impact it for sure. So you can just rack it off into, from one fermenter into the other, and just leave that grain bed in the bottom. Maybe carry a little bit over to help feed what yeast is in there, because a lot of that's dead yeast, and it'll give it some kind of nutrient to continue the fermentation if it's still working. But if it's done working, just rack it off, and you can store it that way and let it settle out. And as long as you're not in a hurry, the longer you take, the better it's going to be. But you can put it outside, or get in a cold, maybe a garage that's kind of in between cold and real cold. It depends on your where you are. I'm not sure where you are, but here, you couldn't leave it out long; it'd be frozen. But yeah, that'll definitely help separate it for you. Cold crashing. Yeah, for me, it's gonna. I've got the apple still to run, and I haven't had a chance to do it. And every few days that I put that off, it's just going to be more work later, and I really need to do it before Christmas so I can get everything kind of cleaned up and out of the way. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do something soon too. I got that blueberry to run as well, or blackberry. I definitely paced myself a little too slowly. What's going on, Scott? I wonder if he's gonna make it in tonight. Yeah, we got lots of boys and girls watching tonight. That's some new people. Oh, JJ's birthday. Awesome, brother. Happy birthday. Finally getting to drink your birthday mead. That's awesome. So I'm sure you're using that 71B in mead, because I think that's a really good yeast for meads. 71 and 74 both are real good meads for meads. And some honey liquor for us hillbillies. We got honey liquor. Oh, somebody said, thank you, Clint. Get a scratchy throat, man. We gotta get rid of that. I can't have it. Man, I hate drinking so much of this. I'm gonna be drinking all this. It's gonna be gone. I have to go back to the old peach brandy that doesn't taste like peach. I gotta keep a little bit of that. I think I'll drink that at first for the good flavors. Then I'll follow it up with this sweet peach that doesn't taste like peach. It just tastes like liquor, but it's got a good sweetness to it. It's a different sweet, but it's a good drink. It's just not peachy. So I'll put that in a barrel and get some characters out of the barrel. Probably take a lot of my brandies and kind of maybe not neutralize them, but run them all together and make a mixed fruit brandy and put in one of them 15s is the plan. Especially that like the watermelons and some of those that didn't do well. I'm going to try to clean those up some. 1 second, let me get a card. Here is her card. I'm not sure if y'all can see that or not. Probably not. No, you can't. Kelly Graham. And she hands out business cards, so I'm assuming she doesn't mind me sharing her number. But she's a nice lady, and she takes care of us. Her name is Kelly Graham, and her number is 765-571-0668. And she picks them up north. She's lives in Indiana, but she does quite a bit of traveling to a lot of the festivals that we have. So she'll pick up a shitload and put them in a U-Haul and brings them and sells them at the festivals. And she's fairly priced, but tell her that old bad Santa and the militia sent you and gave you their number. That way she takes care of me the next time. But she's a real nice lady, and those are really good quality barrels and new fresh barrels, right? So they hadn't been sitting around in the warehouse for 8 months a year, and to soak them as much because a lot of times these barrels sit around a while, they start drying out and cracking, and you got to soak them and really soak the hell out of them to re-expand that wood. And a lot of these that she has are just fresh. So yeah, definitely get up with her. Nice lady and decent prices. I mean, it's not the best. Phil Billy got some too. He gets them from hers as well, and we get them from wherever we can. We picked up some 15s from Northern Kentucky not long ago, and so we're always on the look out for good deals on barrels and stuff like that, so we can try to pass those savings on to the members and our people in the circle. So, but yeah, this gal definitely she'll take care of you, and she may not be able to ship them, but she can tell you where she's going to be the next festival she'll be at, and hopefully it's going to be one that you just have to plan, right? So maybe there's a festival and she might be able to tell you where she gets them up there. If she's not going to be able to meet you or meet you at a festival or anywhere close up there. Um, so she may, kind of spill the beans on where she gets them. I think it's actually stamped on the barrel anyway, so it's not like it's a big secret. I could probably look at one of my barrels over here and see. But yeah, that's her name. All right. Thought maybe you forgot it's Tuesday. A lot of people are forgetting it's Tuesday now instead of Wednesday, but we'll get used to it. I like the Tuesday thing. It's cool with me. Yeah, they're not. No, you can pull the rings and redo them. It's not for everybody. But yeah, it can be done. I'm not a big Cooper though. But I usually just take the top bands off, take one end cap off, and just kind of reach in and scrape as best I can, dump it, rinse it, take a torch to it, and just try to, you know, hillbilly engineer it. Yeah, it takes time and a lot of ball jars to build it. And you just have to store it high proof. You can't don't proof it down and try to store it at 100 proof, 100, 90 proof. It takes too many jars. You just have to store it at 160, 40, whatever you're coming off at. And I'm just not real fond about storing it, but you'd be surprised how many distilleries store their product in totes, right? So it's like, man, here I am all paranoid about microplastics and shit, and I drive to a lot of these not major distilleries, but kind of mid-major. I mean, they're big distilleries that produce a lot of product, and you look out back, man, there's a whole pot, a whole farm of fucking totes out there, and it's like, what do you got out there? Oh, we store the heads and the tails and some of those we rerun. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. I guess they're allowed to do it, so they do. But yeah, so yeah, you may have to just store it, find something to store it in. I don't recommend, plastic barrels, HDPE or any of that PET and stuff because it's fine for ethanol. Ethanol doesn't break them down. And people are like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Ethanol doesn't break that down. Right here's the chart. It's A rated for alcohol, ethanol. I'm like, yeah, but look at ethyl acetate. Where is it on that fucking chart? You got a lot of ethyl acetate in them heads and tails. That's eating that plastic up, bro. Trust me, because it's rated C. Uh, so yeah, it's not so good. So yeah, microplastics are a big concern and should be. It's not something that we've spent a lot of, BHP, I guess, was always the thing of the past. Now microplastics is a big thing, and it is concerned because it's so inert. Once it gets in our bodies don't break that shit down. We either pass it or we hold it forever. And you get that shit in your liver, and you don't if you can't get rid of it. Yeah, it's not good. Very inert. Good for that purpose, but yeah, the acids and stuff in our digestive system that break it down. Not all of us are, man. I am a bourbon freak, though. I've been a bourbon whiskey man my whole life. Not much of a beer man. I was a boiler maker, but um, man, I love my bourbons. I'm a bourbon freak. Yeah, and what he's talking about, a lot of it you just have to taste, because it depends on the barrel. So you can't say exactly 3 months in this size barrel, 8 months in this size barrel, because is it first use, second use, third use? Do you know how many uses it had? How long was it used before? How fresh is it? How long is it set? There's so many variables. So after, you got a range to start with, and then after that range, it's taste it every few weeks just to see because you don't want it to over oak. And the smaller the barrel, the larger the surface area is to liquor ratio, right? And the larger that ratio is, the less time needed to get it to that point. But you just can't erase the time factor. So you can barrel age it, and you can get the tannins, and you can get some of the flavors from the barrel and stuff. But the esterification processes I was talking about earlier, and the phenolics and all that's going on. Um, that that just takes time. Time is the only thing that it's a chemical process that just keeps processing and processing and has a certain rate of production, and you can't increase that, right? That's been everybody's trying to find the way to rapid age and decrease that, and there's just really no way to replace that time. But that's what he's talking about longer. You don't want to over oak, right? But there's so many factors that go into that, Henry. That's what he's referring to. That's what I'm going to do with mine. I'm getting a 15, and and I will after a certain time if I see that it's just getting where it's getting close to being over oaked. I'm going to have to dump probably half of it into some jars and then refill it, and then kind of do that to help perpetuate it, right? But it'll be fun, be interesting. Yeah, malt bringers, or if you got a fruit press, that works the same way. I use a malt bringer. I used to just set my brew bag, and going back to letting your mash settle. It's a patience thing. So what you want to do is it'll immediately within a day or two you'll get a lot of solids at the bottom, but you'll still have a real milky, liquid. So you can rack that off, just siphon it off. Don't use a pump, stir everything up, just gently siphon that off into a secondary fermentation vessel. And if you want to recover what's left in the bottom, you can dump that into a brew bag, let that brew bag set over, a bucket overnight. I use the ladder. I used to use a ladder. I just tie my brew bag up to the ladder and let it hang from the middle of the ladder, and had a bucket underneath the ladder that would just let it drip overnight. And you'd be surprised, a good 12, 14-hour drip. It'll most of it'll be out of it. You can press it, get a little bit more. Then you can put that in a mop wringer and get that last little bit out, and then allow that to sit as well and thin, and then you'll see how it clears out, or cold crash. But yeah, that works well. Or a fruit press, pressing those bag out. Any of that works well. But there'll be a point in time when you like, how much extra am I getting, and is it worth all that trouble? That's what you have to weigh. Some people it's damn well worth it, and some people it's like, that's all that work got me. All that extra work, and all I got was half a gallon of more water, or mash juice, and it's like, okay, that breaks down to maybe a little half pint at the end of everything, maybe less. So is it worth it? Some people yes, some people no. So, and that's where, if you want to sour mash, take that, and once you don't have to worry about pressing all that last bit out. Just put some, sugar water on top of that and some fresh grains, and start the next, sour mash process. So, that's another thing that you can do with it and not have to worry about, squeezing that last bit out. So it's food for thought. Yep. I think that's exactly what I've got. I got my, no, mine's not Rubbermaid. It's starts with a W, Oryx or something like that. Got it at Walmart. It works great. People are like, oh, you use that? And they think I use it for a mop bucket as well as a grain strainer. And I'm like, we don't use it as a mop. We don't use it for that purpose. It's strictly for straining grains. Um, Actually, you can use it to get your water acidic. Absolutely. You don't have to have water. There's no rule that says it has to be water, but you want it to be around 5.3. You don't want really low acid to start the fermentation process, or it's just going to crash much quicker on you. But yeah, I mean, you can heat it up, and I mean, that's what we do in sour mashing basically, is adding that together. So, you could use it certainly to cook with just the same. You're adding it later anyway. So it's not going to be all back set though, right? It's going to be some water, some back set, some sugar. Um, so especially like in a sour mash for sure. Yeah. Right. And it depends, on, most is 20%, but malted wheat, if you can get some of your wheat malted, that has a higher diastatic than the malt, so than the barley. So, um, but yeah, we use a high temp amylase in our process. Now, step mashing up for a beer maker, you start cool and you start warming up as you go. Well, our mash process is reversed. We start hot with our gelatinized corn and cool and work backwards to, the malted grain. So it's a little bit different process, quite a bit different than what you're used to. But you can combine the two. You can use your malted grains and do your step mashing up as you normally would, and you could cook your corn separately, gelatinize it at 195, 200 degrees, 185 plus, right? And add your, alpha liquid high temp alpha in amylase, and start breaking those down. And once you get to about 150, 155 range, then you can combine the two and use the diastatic of the malt that you've built from step mashing up to help convert the corn that you've just cooked. And you don't have to use that high temp, but it makes it so much easier, more manageable. If it's something that's kind of foreign to beer makers, but the high temp amylase, alpha amylase that we use is awesome. And we also have a liquid glucose amylase that we use. So we're not just using the endogenous enzymes that come in the malts, the alpha and the beta glucanase. We're utilizing a high temp alpha amylase at a much higher temperature, and it helps that gelatinized corn thin out and helps it thin. And then we add a liquid glucose at, well, depending on what glucose it is, at 140 or 100 Fahrenheit, and help debranch the rest of those dextrins, right? So, but 20% is usually what people go with, but as long as you're getting it all converted, that's the most important thing, and getting a good conversion. You check with iodine, you don't have any remnant starches, so you're not going to have any limit dextrins. But if you follow up with a glucose after that, I think it would help tremendously to make sure that you get everything debranched real well. Right, exactly. Uh-oh, I'm getting behind, I see. Yep. I was talking when I start seeing comments, I was talking. Uh, that's awesome, man. There's nothing like that. When you have that age on it, it adds so much, and just the patience and time and everything that it takes in doing that. Just like this grappa, I've tasted it mature for years now. I tasted it as a year and 3 month wine, that was really good, and I watched it mature and tasted it mature as a wine. I drank it pretty much 3 weeks into the process. It wasn't bad either that way, but it had a very sharp alcohol taste initially, right? And they call it astringent. So you lose that astringency, right? And then it just becomes less alcohol tasting. There was people. It's kind of odd. People, oh, it tastes like alcohol, and then it's like people think, oh, it's supposed to taste like alcohol. It's alcohol, but they're really meaning it's got an isopropyl flavor. Like isopropyl would smell, and an astringent, which is one of the reasons we let things that it evaporate and get some of those more volatile off. Yeah, you want your pH to be at about 5.3 when you start um, breaking your starches down, because it's just like simple syrup. When you convert to simple syrup, when you're breaking down the sucrose, the disaccharide, into monosaccharide, you use acid to help break that bond, right? Uh, and you can use acid in the production as well. When you start breaking down your starches, and it helps catalyze that and speed it up. But that glycosidic bond that you have between the two, having that acid, it's a catalyst in breaking that bond, and it's amazing how it does it. It's a pretty strong bond, but one molecule bonds to a water H2O, so you got two oxygens on there, and it bonds to each of the oxygens, and then it breaks, and it uses the water to break that bond. It's pretty amazing how it works. How can you get a sour watermelon from a run? Um, Watermelon is a pretty tough thing. A lot of people post flavor and get that flavor pretty easily. There's lots of flavors out there that you can use. And used to, post flavoring was a big, huge no-no. These days, people don't give a shit, man. They're focused on the flavor. They don't care about the process. They don't care if it's clear. They're really not interested. It's like, I don't care. My orange juice, is it clear? I don't care drinking something that it doesn't all have to be clear. I can drink something that has some color or some translucency to it, and I don't care. As long as it tastes good, that's what I want, and that's why a lot of flavored drinks are being made now. More so, and bourbon and whiskey are becoming less popular, and a lot of neutral and flavored spirits are becoming a lot more popular, and carbonated, neutral spirits, mixed drinks basically in a can are becoming much more popular. So different generation, different likes, and hopefully they'll mature and not ruin the whole industry. Um, but yeah, you can use infusions, so you can get some, you can infuse with some flavors and make some sour, good, interesting sour. We call like a sour patch. Damon makes a sour patch shine that's got some sour watermelon and some sweetness from. It's kind of sweet and sour at the same time. It's really good. I like it. It's a good flavored drink, and it's basically made from a neutral, but it's infused with this. Uh, I guess some kind of, like, it's almost, I guess, like a Kool-Aid flavoring, or Sour Patch candies or hard candies. You can use those. So you can buy, what's the watermelon candies that you get, the little watermelon. I can't remember what the name of them was. I got something in there. I use them, but they're good. Put in a neutral and flavoring it that way works real well. I tried them with infusion, didn't work so well. Lost all that flavor. So, but if you put them in a neutral and just let them break down in that neutral, and that sugar and everything will, it sweetens it up, gives it a good sour patch flavor, and it's good for flavor. But if you want it clear, then, and you want it coming off, then you're going to have to use the infusion process, and then you have to deal with infusers, and those work fairly well. But it's not ever going to have that flavor of a post. It's that post flavoring is what people expect. They really do. They don't want a hint or a note of this. They want to be smacked in the fucking face with it, and that's why I like Damon's. It smacks you in the face. It puckers you up. It's sour and sweet at the same time. It's good. I like it. It's not bad at all. Now, let me see. I was looking at a picture earlier. I was doing some research on the vacuum distillation, and I came across a pretty interesting looking. And I was talking this Saturday about. Um, let's see if I can pull that up. Damn it! Why don't you just open, people? I have to click 5 different things to open something up, man. It's ridiculous. Okay, here we go. There. Oh wow, that's bigger than I wanted it to be. That's more than the whole page. Maybe I can shrink it down. Yeah. Oh shit. No, I can't. 250. Come on, man. Let me reduce that to. Why is it doing that? Oh, fuck. Okay. I'm just going to screenshot it another way. Come on, Denord. Do better. Okay, here we go. Let me screenshot this and show y'all what I'm talking about. But earlier I was talking about, or last week I was talking, I'm going to make a couple of screenshots here so I can show what it looks like. And this is not a bad price. It's Denord. They make good quality stuff. I get a lot of Denord stuff. It comes out of China. Most all your stainless does. Everybody's like, oh, I don't want China. Yeah, well, if you buy most of your stainless stuff these days, you get China, whether you like it or not. But let me show. Let's see here. Got it. I keep hitting the wrong button. Here we go. But something like this, and you see the element. You put an electrical element in right there. This is not something I guess you could put something in the bottom. But it has a ferrule in the bottom of it, so you can drain the bottom if you wanted to. You can put a valve there, a butterfly valve or a gate valve, or I mean a ball valve. And if you were fermenting in this, you could dump it out right to your yeast brink and then close it. Uh, but this is a great vessel for vacuum distilling, because you're not going to have to worry about implosion, because that's really thick stainless steel. That's not this thin, you know, pot and pan type steel. That's some thick stuff that probably weighs about 400 or 500 pounds. It's heavy ass setup, and it's really thick. And they use these in the marijuana industry, and they use it in essential oil extraction and in vacuum distillation because you don't have to worry about that imploding because it's very heavy duty. Now this might be jacketed. It does have a larger base and it gets a little smaller there at the top. So I don't know if that's a jacket or what on this. I don't think it is, but um, and here's what the top of it looks like. But they're, this is what you want, for that process if you want to get into that. Um, and this is what the top looks like, right? But this is what they use in a lot of the in oil extractions when they extract a lot of the marijuana oils and things like that, and essential oils like lavender. If they do a lot of essential oils, they'll use something similar to this to do the vacuum distillation in. Yeah, you can get some good port barrels, and that'd be great, for some of your brandies and stuff. Jolly Ranchers, thank you. That's what the candy was I was trying to think of. But yeah, you can just take Jolly Ranchers and put it in a neutral, and just let them dissolve. And hey, it works well. It tastes good, and you can sweeten it up if you want to sweeten a little bit sweetener. You can put a little sugar in there. I mean, it's a mixed drink, right? You're mixing. It's an alcohol. It's a mixed drink, but um, it just doesn't come off the tap that way. But you can use the Jolly Ranchers in infusers. I've seen people basically take alcohol and soak the Jolly Ranchers, break them down into a syrup, and pour that syrup right into their infusers, right? And infuse that through, and it'll help pick up some of that flavor as it coming off. If you have to have it coming off that drip, and want that infusion flavor infused and not post flavored, that would be one good way to do it. But a lot of people is like, man, you jump through a lot of hoops. I really don't give a fuck. Just put that shit in a jar and put them Jolly Ranchers in it, shake it up, and just sell it to me that way because I like the flavor. And they really want to be smacked with flavor instead of they don't. Most people aren't uptight about the process anymore like they used to be. Especially the younger generation, they just don't care. They're not interested in what all you had to do. I just want something very flavorful, and that's the way to keep the most flavor would be with a post. But for the traditionalists, they'd be like, no, you can't do it that way. You gotta have it off the drip. But more and more people these days are less and less concerned about that. Used to, it was heresy to say anything what I was saying now. Most of those old shiners would be like, "You're no shiner, son. You no shiner. Don't say that. You no shiner at all." But yeah, it's very tricky. It is very tricky. I don't like it. It's tough. And if you do, um, you want to do it in a cooler environment and in a slower, you want to do it like a wine instead of, you can't have it go fast because um, the watermelon and heat just don't work well together. And I think that was my issue this year for sure. It is damn good. I can't believe all this Sam I was sitting there saying the same thing. I'm a little behind. Just 20 minutes. We're not too bad. I'm gonna catch up real quick here. Mine too. They're not good. Not good at all. Especially the wine. The shine was wasn't great, and it's gonna get cleaned up with a column. I've got a new column, 4-inch column. I got myself for Christmas. So I'm gonna have fun with that. Yeah, I can't believe they do that, but they sure do. They got a big tote farm right behind the distillery, and I'm like, what are you keeping there? Oh, that's heads and some tails and the other, and I'm like, okay, cool. Tell you what's cheapest, John, is to get you a sheet of copper for about $300, and you can build up to about a 40 or 50 gallon still with a sheet of copper pretty easy, a 3x10. And we got templates. Yeah, that's the way to do it. It is. It's so much easier. Just make a good sweet neutral and put your 20 pieces in a quart, or 25 in a quart. Shake it up every day until it fully dissolves, and it's awesome. It's good. I like it. And you can put your little sugar in there, or you can cook it. You can, take it on the stove and heat it up, and stir it in with a little bit of water and sugar, and dissolve them up, and then add your high proof to that, and proof it down at the same time. You're just proofing it down with the basically Jolly Rancher Kool-Aid. But it's great, man. I love it. Damon's got a pretty good recipe. I don't know what it is, but his Sour Patch, I call it the Sour Patch. It's good stuff. Yeah, I was wondering what the Brittany tanks were. I was like, well, it's some high research, man. I don't know. Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And it does. And it does. It's both. It's both. You're using the yeast bed to carry forward yeast and yeast nutrients and what's in the grain, right? So all of it's mixed up. So when you siphon off the grain, and you're taking just the clears off, you've got all that grain and all the old grains and the powders and the flours, whatever. It's better to have some crack in there with it, because it does help thin it out and keep it easier to filter. But yeah, and that's what it is. Just using the old grain, and you can add supplement new grain. So you take out 10% of that old grain and add 10% fresh cooked new grain to help keep that flavor profile up, and do that every run. Add your back set to keep your pH down and to keep the flavor in there. And absolutely. There's a lot of methods of sour mashing other than Uncle Jesse's. That's not the traditional method, but you can kind of combine the two. Which is what I do. Yeah, it's gonna be so good after a year, man. Big birthday drink. Yeah, they definitely will. When I was younger, we drank a lot of sweet stuff and hunch punch. We called it hunch punch, and we'd just bring in moonshine. We'd have pure grain. We'd have vodka, whatever, rum going into a big plastic barrel, and we'd mix in Kool-Aid and Hawaiian punch and anything else, and just make a big old garbage pail full of alcohol, dump some ice on it, and have a party. We called it hunch punch. Everybody get drunk and screw. Yeah, didn't have a lot to do back home, man. We had to create fun. What happens when you grow up in the mountains? It's kind of a little slower pace. Damn, I'm getting a scratchy throat. I'm gonna be sick. It is moonshine heresy. I know. All them old shiner, you ain't no shiner, saying that. They'd be like, man, a lot of them might have just tuned off. I was just like, never watching it again. Something like that, man. You just lost all respect from them. But times are changing, man. It's not just about us and what we like. It's unless you're just making it for yourself, in which case, it's different. But if you're sharing it with others and marketing it, it's different. Yeah, and butane. I like the CO2 extraction method. That's pretty clean. The butane. I just worry about having remnants of that in there because it's got to be some kind of cancer carcinogenic. Yeah, I've seen them use the butane in 2 liter Coke, Coke 2 liter Coke jugs. It's crazy, man. Definitely want to do that outside. But yeah, like that butane, man. It doesn't take much to get that stuff boiling, does it? It's got a really low boiling point, man. You get that shit cooking pretty easy. Yep. Yeah, the TTB will make them regulate. They have to name it a certain thing. But whiskey's a catch-all. Whiskey's pretty easy. It's you can back call anything a whiskey almost, but to be a bourbon, it has a pretty lot stricter. Right. Yeah, when you're using alcohol to extract for weed, you really want to use the highest proof you can get because when you have water in there, you get the chlorophyll, and it makes it green, and it's not a nice honey colored resin. So if you can use 190 plus proof, you're minimizing the amount of water in there and minimizing the amount of green. The higher proof, the more amber and true to color that you'll get. But yeah, if you can vacuum distill that at like 110, 20 degrees instead of 200, you're going to retain a lot of those flavonoids and terpenes and terpenes and a lot of flavors from that. A lot of phenolics, hydrosols. Um, Trying to think of the resveratrol. I can't pronounce it. Resveratrols or something like that. It's the plant matter that you get out of a lot of your fruits and stuff. But a lot of these flavors, and we're going to talk about that this weekend. I got some interesting uh, stuff to go over, and I'm making a little, I guess, text file with some facts copied and pasted from some different sources, and some in my own words. But try to help explain it, and I'm going to post that in the groups so it can kind of follow up with what we talk about in the podcast. That if you want to download it and learn more about it and read about it, and it might make more sense because sometimes I have to read things 2 or 3 times before it makes sense to me. Yes, you have a duty. That is your function. I don't use a pump. I just siphon. I just lift that. Well, if you're using big fermenters, you need to start it out on a pedestal or on some blocks or on the up high, so you'll have something lower to siphon down to. Because I like to siphon. I don't like, and I'm used to doing my wines that way anyway. So I got like a 3/4 inch silicone tube I drop in there, siphon that out, and it goes pretty quickly. Just be patient. And got a little clothespin that I'll clip on the top of the fermenter, and I'll just put that little hose right in the top of that clothespin and wedge it in, and it'll hold it right there in place, and it'll hover right above that grain bed or the must bed, fruit bed, or yeast bed. Flocculence is basically the term they call it. and just siphon everything off that way and just be patient. A lot of people use pumps. When you say you drop that pump in there, you got a lot of turbulence and it stirs up a lot of shit. Well, I don't want to deal with that. That defeats the purpose. So it sets you back a day or two. But if you rack it properly, you can rack it directly and run, rack and run. But if not, if you stir up a lot of shit, you got to wait another day, right, to let that settle. No, but it sounds good. We had Sour Patch. Actually, that was way after my time, and Sour Patch Kids or something kind of new. Yeah, 190 proof is safe for extraction purposes, um, especially fractional distillation because you're not dealing with open flames. Generally, you're just dealing with hot water because it's just hot water. I mean, you could actually use your body temperature to boil it, right? If you had enough with with enough negative atmospheres, you just touch it with your body and it would make it boil. Would that be wild to watch? Just your body heat cause something to boil and feel like Merlin, a magician or something. But yeah, you could literally do that. Yeah, you can use frozen corn. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's got either got the sugars or the starches in it. So starchy corn has to be converted, whereas sugary corn doesn't. But you'll get more sugar out of a starch corn conversion than I think you will out of most of your sweet corns if you don't convert. So um, yeah, it's just sweet corn's better for eating, and starchy corn's better for converting and making alcohol with. But both make great alcohol. I do like sweet corn, like a corn. What they call cream corn in the thumper or something like that. Helps a whole lot, to or an infuser. Put some cream corn in there, and it definitely makes good corn liquor. It's a good secret. But yeah, you can take. Excuse me. You can. I know I'm gonna get sick, man. That sucks. You can take that frozen corn and let it thaw and puree it, and puree sweet corn, and use that in a thumper or an infuser as well to help get that good sweet corn flavor to carry through. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, you could do it for half that here. A sheet of copper here, 20 ounce, a little over 300, three and a quarter, depending on where you get it. And you can get a 50 out of that. But, it takes a little work and a little soldering and doesn't take a lot of knowledge. It just takes patience and willing to learn and adapt. It might not be pretty, probably won't be if it's your first, but as long as it doesn't leak and you got some good solid seams and some decent welds or soldering joints, should work just fine. That's why you see a lot of copper steels. It wasn't all necessarily just because copper was best, which it is. It's because it was the easiest to make, right? Because either you used a 55-gallon oil drum or you made a submarine pot with sheet metal, or if you could solder and you were pretty handy, you could build a real steel. But that was the thought process back in the day. And most people just use the old 55-gallon oil drum. They clean her out and run her. Hey, yeah, tonight. Well, for this show, we're pretty much Q&A, so it's not much a talk show as it is engaging the actual people that watch, right? So this is your night. This is the night where all the viewers get to ask their questions and we answer them. And this is more geared towards just distilling and less, talk show, right? So some of them interview people. We've got interviewers that do the interview stuff that bring people on to interview and talk about their life and what's going on and what they've been up to lately. I used to do that, but I think I like engaging the people, the viewers. I like engaging with the viewers, talking to the viewers, and answering their questions and and let them be the star, right? So you're the star of the show. It's all about you guys, right? So that's why we do this. It's why I do this, because it's what I've always wanted to do. I've done the talk show thing and all that, and that's fun. And I enjoyed, getting Justin Meredith and other people on, and from Master Distiller and Distillers and other people on, and it's a lot of. I enjoy it, and I may do some more of that sometime. But I really enjoy dealing with directly with the viewers on a one-on-one and answering their questions and helping them with their hobby. I love that. That's what I'm all about. So that's why I've chose this path instead of being the talk show host and bring a lot of people on and talk to each other, and you all get to watch and listen. This is your night. This is the night where you all get to be the star and ask your questions and get noticed and talk about what you got going on, right? So, and I like that the best. So welcome. That's right. Well, I was moonshining long before the show, and I actually had, an old Facebook page built long as Moonshine Mafia is my old page, and that was my original Facebook page that we used, and it was a bunch of buddies from Eastern Kentucky and I that that we all did that together back in the day, and so I was actually doing that long before the show ever came on, and really when nobody talked about it, it wasn't something that was a big hobby and people weren't interested in it. Other than that in the country, you had a bunch of people that were interested and did it. A lot of times, if they did it for a living, it wasn't something that they went out and bragged in social media about. It's just something that they did, right? It's just another way to make a living, right? And but you didn't talk about it much back then, and it was more mum's the word. Now, hell, you was worried about getting busted back then. Now crime's so rampant that we're the least of their worries, right? It's like you're not cooking meth. No, I'm just making little vodka. Whatever, I've got bigger fish to fry. I got bigger issues. As long as I don't catch you out selling it, I'm not. It's a no brainer, no big deal. But some, like some states, really, they have to enforce it. That's what they got. They got law enforcement specifically for that, so they have to justify their existence, right? They have to do their jobs. You can do it, bro. You can. It's nothing to it, man. I'm telling you, it's so easy. Once you watch it done, just watch popping bait or popping lines. He's on DIY. He's got videos that show him. He's not a master at this point. He's learning, but we're learning together. Everybody's learning along with him, right? We watch him develop his skills, and it like, well, I can do that, right? You see somebody do that, and then you look at somebody that's been doing it for 10, 15 years, and it's like, wow, I don't think I could do that. So I'd rather watch Papa Lyons do his. It's like, wow, that, I think, because he doesn't have a lot of the machines. He got, he's working up. So he's got his rollers and stuff to help him, make some beads and some, bends. But yeah, just watch them do it. There's lots of videos out there. It's really not that tough. It just takes the time, and it's really not as tough as you think. It's just taking the pliers and just bending that edge, right, making that line all the way across it, and just bending that edge uniformly. If you don't have a brake or sheet metal brake, if you got somebody that that's got a sheet metal brake, you can save yourself a lot of time. And if you go to somebody that does sheet metal, they could help you whip one together in a day, and just so you just take it back home, work your welds, put solder in there and put your flux in there and solder it up. And, it doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to be, that can't leak, right? Yeah, you late. Awesome. That sounds good, brother. Hell yeah. Love me some peppermint schnapps. We were talking about that Saturday at Rumplemints, man. I drink the shit out of that back in the day. I like that stuff. And I got drunk on it, man. It made for a bad hangover too, boy. But yeah, I've been to jail a few times on that. Yeah, you were talking and bragging about that. Yeah, I give out some recipes, but sometimes I leave a little bit of secret or two out of it. I'm not gonna tell everything, but yeah, sometimes we gotta keep some secrets. Better late than never, brother. It's good to have you with us, and definitely love me some peppermint schnapps. Yeah, yeah, they do have the food saver, but there is something about, and we'll talk about that Saturday. There is a need for a little bit of oxygen in there initially, and that's part of the process. When they put the wine in the bottles, there's that little bit of oxygen, and that gets consumed, and then it becomes a reduced environment, a reducted environment, so where there's no oxygen. Um, so yeah, it's something we'll talk about. But yeah, because that's why wine bottles come up smaller, because that you want to minimize that amount of oxygen. You don't want a lot. Oxygen is your enemy, um, but just that little bit is needed, and then it gets consumed rather quickly. And then it's just CO2 after that. Right. And that's a winemaker's thing. You want that clarity. You want that clearness. You don't want a milky wine. Nobody wants milky wines. But with mixed drinks, you know, it's a mixed drink. So once you start adding flavors to it, it's not a distilled spirit anymore. It's a mixed drink. And I don't care what proof it is, it's still a mixed drink. So but people don't mind it. They don't mind drinking that 90 proof mixed drink that has a little bit of cloudiness in it or color to it. Um, they just like that flavor. Yep, we're here every Tuesday. Well, now Tuesdays. We used to be Wednesdays and Saturdays. Now we're Tuesday, Saturday. So we won't be here next Tuesday, but this Saturday we'll be here. And next Tuesday we're going to be gone before Christmas, and we'll be back the 30th, I think. Wait, that doesn't sound right. 20th, 27th, 20. Yes, 27th. We'll be back on the 27th. So we'll be here this weekend on the 20th. We're going to be gone the 23rd. I got to play Santa, and then the 27th we'll be back, and then on the 30th we'll do our New Year's Eve on the New Year's Eve Eve. So we'll do a New Year's Eve Eve on the 30th. Yeah, yeah, and in space, you could probably boil water in a jar that you hold if there's no if you're out in space with the vacuum at that few atmospheres with total vacuum like that. Yeah, you could hold a jar of water and boil it in your hand. That's crazy, isn't it? But if the jar was sealed under our environment, it wouldn't. But the second you open it up and it changes, the pressure in the atmospheres change, it start boiling over. Isn't that crazy? That's just so wild to think, isn't it? And that's why we have the space station, so we can conduct these experiments with low gravity and in vacuums of space. Yep, and you can get bags of corn kernel even cheaper, bro. Just the regular field corn yellow dent number 2. It is cheaper. We've done the numbers. It's much, and this is why the ethanol industry doesn't use sugar to make alcohol. You can get much cheaper to get sugar from yellow dent number 2 corn than anything out there, and it's just the most efficient way. Um, and just using enzymes and breaking it down, it's definitely one of the best flavors. It's much cheaper than buying sugar. It's just a little more difficult. Absolutely. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can get them by much cheaper. Starting out like what I've got an 18 and a half beaver. I've got 15-gallon kegs now. I've got a couple of 80s that I don't use anymore, but or I haven't used in a long time. But yeah, it doesn't take a big steel, to produce a decent amount. 18 and a half gallon steel. Let me show you a picture of it, and then I'll give you how much they sell for, and or you can get a copper one from Philbilly, or actually there's a lot of people that buy these. You can get it online or other places, other sources, but yeah, there's a lot of. Let me get you a picture, and I can explain it because I do want everybody that I talk to either get a keg or one of these to start with. If you've got money and you've got a deep pocket, by all means get copper. If you don't mind a little maintenance and cleanup, 100%, you'll be very happy with copper. But this is like an 18 and a half gallon pot. It's got a little football cap on it, and this is a little canister condenser, right? Um, right now you can get that for about 200 bucks, and that's everything you need to start making your wine. You can ferment in this. It's got an airlock on it, so you can ferment in it, dump it out, let it, rack it off, dump out the grains out of the bottom, the must and the yeast bed, clean it up real good, pour the clears back in there, seal the lid up, start cooking it on your stove or on your turkey fryer, and for 250 bucks, you could be making your own in a week. This is but learning how to make your mash and learning to do that while we're here. But you can't go wrong with that, or just a beer keg, the old beer keg. um, Another cheap easy way to do it, you can just use any standard beer keg, get you a little column, and or you can get a cap like that one and put on there either way. But a lot of people opt to use this. They're about 150 bucks. Everybody's got those as well. You can get the keg and everything from him. He's got heating elements that can go into the side to heat up your mash, right? And so you can just go all electric, just plug it into your dryer socket and in your clothes dryer, or where your range plugs into the wall, just pull it out, use this plug it in, and be ready to go, right? And use that. Electric's much cheaper than propane, and use the little controller, control your heat, cook it off in your keg, run your little cold water from the sink over to it, have your little pump it through, a little palm pump or fish tank pump, and pump your condenser water through and circulate it and keep it cool. And yeah, we can get you going, bro, pretty cheap. It doesn't take a lot of money. So yeah, you can distill home for much cheaper than 1,000. But yeah, we often have beginning to end, and I've shown you what you need to buy. That's called a Bever football steel. That first one, where you can buy you a beer keg with a column, or if Billy can make you a cap for it, he's got columns and caps that'll fit on there, and heating elements that you can put. You'll have to have somebody weld you a little 2-inch ferrule in the side of the bottom of the keg there. But when you take that apart, it looks just like a beer keg, right? Somebody looks at it, they don't see a moonshine steel. It's like, well, it looks like a beer keg to me, sitting there. You just take this apart, keep all your plumbing separate and in a box, and when you're ready to run, they just put clamp together, twist it on these tri clamps, and very simple, very simple. And it's a great hobby, man. It's very enjoyable. If you like to drink, you'll love the hobby. And it's even I know people that don't drink that still do the hobby. I've got lots of friends that they don't drink. They'll make it. They'll give it away. They used to drink, but they can't anymore for health reasons or whatever. But I got several friends that don't drink much at all or any at all, and still love to make it because it's such a fun hobby. And and they like seeing their friends happy and that the bragging rights, right? And their friends, wow, this is like some of the best shit ever. Nothing like sharing a jar like this with somebody. And they're like, man, I think that's probably the best liquor that's ever touched my lips, man. That's a high praise from people, and I've got quite a few of those from this right here. And it is awful good. I hate bragging on myself, but man, I kind of outdid myself on this one. But that's probably some of the best I've ever tasted too. It's just so good. I wish everybody could taste what I'm tasting right now. But yeah, you can get, but there's safety things too, Dweezil, and um, that's why we're here, so we can help you learn and keep it safe and make the hobby safe. And that's the most important part, is answering all your questions, making it safe, making it enjoyable, and making it work. Because sometimes people, they try to do it, they try to micromanagement and just read and listen to YouTube, and it's just, sometimes you get the wrong information from people that don't have the knowledge, that like to act like they do, or they hear me do a podcast or two, and all of a sudden they're experts, and they go out there and try to do their own thing, and they don't remember what they learned. They pass on some bad thoughts and habits that just aren't right. But yeah, we're here every Tuesday and Saturday. Tune in. Order your Upper Steel. They're on sale right now. PhilBillyMoonshine.com. Get up with him. Get you, if you want to go the keg route, he can hook you up. If you want to go that football beaver, they've got those on Amazon. I don't think Phil carries those, but you can get those off Amazon, eBay, wherever. It's a beaver football steel. Just remember the picture of that football. But either one of those, you can't go wrong with. Great beginner steel. Holds a decent volume. 15, you'll probably run 13 gallons in. I run 15 in this one. And I'll get, a couple, 2.5 gallons of 2.5 gallons of proof spirit, sometimes 3, depending on what if I'm running tails and stuff in it with it. So yeah, a couple of few gallons each run. That's not too shabby, especially when it's just corn and some enzymes. You'll probably have, maybe $20, $30 into 3 to 5 gallons. Not too shabby, huh? So it's an economical way to drink too, if you like to drink on a budget. And you can make some really good corn liquor better than what you get at the store. If you just follow. I've got some simple how-to instructions. If you follow it to the T, um, you'll make some good corn liquor. You'll be happy, and your friends will be in awe. They'll be like, "Wow, man! I never had any idea you could do this at home." And next thing you know, they'll be tuning in too. But it's a great hobby, and that's why we're here to help share the knowledge and keep it safe and fun. Yeah, I think I just did that. Oh yeah. I was just saying that for me, it's kind of a waste because I love corn. And if you're gonna buy sweet corn, you're buying cobs of sweet corn. Eat that corn. It's the way it's best. Um, but yeah, you can use it to make liquor. I don't discourage that, but I'd much rather just boil it and eat it than than use it in a mash, because I can get just as good flavor in mash with yellow dip that I could get a bag of 50 pounds for like $7, $8. Yeah, it's a huge difference in price. Sweet corn ain't cheap. Yeah, and it's good for prepping too. Yeah, it's just not for alcohol. If shit hits a fan and something happens to your water companies, you're gonna have to go start getting creek water. And filters are expensive, so you don't want that giardia and all these other pollutants in your shit. So, you may have to build a fire and start distilling your own water just to have something to drink. Back in the old days, they didn't know about all these, microorganisms in our water and stuff. They got sick every time they drank water. So that's why they drank so much alcohol. Didn't make them sick, made them feel good, right? Yeah, 22. I've got 20. Mine's 20 gauge, and if you had I like that heavier bottom. I agree with you 100%. Having that heavy bottom is very important, because that's generally what takes the pound and moving it around here to there, sitting it down, and that requires, it takes most of the pounding, and having that thicker to hold that heat better, and not warp as much. It's good. But 20 gauge is a pretty easy, it's quite a bit less expensive. The 16 and 20 ounce, I shouldn't say gauge, I meant 20 ounce. So 22 gauge, what is that ounce wise? We may be talking about the same thing. I'm not sure the conversion here. 20, Oh, 22 gauge. Yeah, no. See, yeah, sucks. 16 ounce is 24 gauge. Yeah, 22 gauge is 20 ounce copper. So we're talking about the same thing. I thought so. Yeah, we're talking about the same thing. So 20 ounce is 22 gauge. And that's what you want for sure. You don't want the 16 is fine for the size and for small stills. If you got a 10-gallon, 15-gallon or less, that 16 is okay. But once you get to 20, 30 plus, you really do want to step it up for the rigidity. So I'm trying to read through this and catch up and see what I think Clint's taking care of a lot of the parts. That's what we try to do is, I'll give a lot of the long-winded replies because Clint's on a telephone and he can do a lot of the short answer stuff and I'll get long-winded on things so people can kind of get quick answer from Clint. And sometimes I'll give him a longer winded answer. It's not that Clint can't, it's just that he's on his phone. He's limited so many characters because, Clint's very, very, he's as knowledgeable as I am. He's been at it a while too, worked at a distillery, so he knows what's happening, bro. That's why we make a good duo in here. I like what we got going on. Works real well. He's a vital part of the duo. Yep, that's all it is, man. But I tell you what, buying it as a kit, it's a lot cheaper, JJ. These little column kits they got, it's got a sight glass, it's got like a 24-inch spool, it's got a deflegmator, it's got two 90s, it's got a thermometer on one of the 90s, which is not that critical, but it's a plus. And then it's got a longer shotgun condenser, and then it's got a little catch dripper. It's all 8 of those parts for like 130 to 50 bucks. If you price those separately, you're well into the 200. So I bought two just because I do a lot of configuring. I've got teas and I've got traps and I got a lot of funny stuff going on because I like to experiment. But yeah, buying them as a little column like that all together at one time is definitely the way to go. It's a good value. That you were sanded. Wow. I just tend to scrape, I just scrape the char off. I don't actually dig into it and sand it. I just use a tool to scrape, a scraping tool, right? And scrape it down to see wood mostly and then just recharge from there. But wow, you sanded. That's awesome. Now the only thing I do sand is the outside when I use staves. My neighbor gives me staves that I use for jar aging. Just put a stave in the jar, and I will sand those down on the and I char all 4 sides, or I guess 8 sides. Yeah, 8 sides or 6 sides. Yeah, one, two, three, four, top, bottom, six. Yeah, 6 sides to the. But there's no wood visible. Let's just say that I sand it all the way around and rechar it. But that works pretty well too. But it's not the same as a barrel on time. Yeah, you can get a beer keg for like 35, 40 bucks on marketplace or around. If you drive by a fraternity house on the weekend, you're liable to find one laying out in their yard and a bunch of people passed out around it. Just liberate it. But yeah, you can get used kegs 25, 35, 40 bucks and that column about 150. So yeah, 100, $200, you'd be going. And the kegs are a lot more solid than the pots. But I like the pot because everything's there. You don't have to buy anything else, and it's just ready to go. Just have to check. I don't have the price list. And it varies. It's based on, whether you're going to ship it or not, and the cost of copper. So the cost of copper kind of fluctuates quite a bit, and he'll adjust his prices based on that. So if it's more expensive for you to buy, prices go up. If they lower the price, he'll lower his prices back down. To remain competitive. But philbillymoonshine.com, check it out. Yep. And they're stainless. The old kegs, the old ones from the 80s. They had some aluminum ones back in the days, but they're all stainless now. Hey, as long as it works, man, it's beautiful, right? It and you can send me a picture. Yeah, just look me up on Facebook and send me a picture. I won't share it. I love seeing what people got going. I love seeing these old third world ones too. I love watching all that stuff and seeing how some of the ingenuity of making their own, and love watching these. Well, I like watching Popping Bates hammer out his stuff, and I like watching these India guys. They use the damn bare feet to hold steel with, and it's like, man, I couldn't wear gloves and not get cut. And these guys using their bare feet to hold shit, moving it around and holding it in their lap and hammering that shit out. This ends up beautiful, man. There's some really great artisans out there. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can get everything: a ferment vessel, corn, amylase, the steel, you know, turkey fryer, everything. And yeah, for less, it's great. It's not an expensive hobby. But when you start getting into the copper porn, it can get kind of pricey when you start getting into the fancy columns and the 4-inch columns and stuff. I've got as much into that column as I do that 18 and a half gallon steel, right? So yeah, it's about the same price actually. Yeah, and I've got a lot of friends that are the same way, Carpenter. And I'm sorry to hear that. Everybody handles their alcohol differently. Some people just can't. And it's sad. Most of my family weren't big drinkers. We would drink wine on the holidays, and and that was pretty much the extent of it. My grandmother loved wine. I think she made a little bit of wine too, but never, we're big hard whiskey. I guess I'm the only one in the family that really was what you would consider a heavier drinker, and that's just because I'm heavy, though. I'm a heavy drinker because I'm fat. Yeah, and as good as I don't know though. It's really hard to beat like a 10 or 15-year-old bourbon. That's been aging that long. It's because I don't think I'll live long enough to age anything that long at this point in time. So yeah, it's gonna be tough. Yeah, you can the for fermentation, the plastic's perfectly fine. You're not dealing with a lot of microplastics because there's not a lot of heads and there's not a lot of in high concentrations. So yeah, it's not so bad because you're just dealing with 10-12% alcohol. But they're also talking about now doing distillation in plastic, because they've got these new little cage and boil plastic buckets that you can cook in the plastic. And I'm like, no, don't do it. Don't go down that rabbit hole, man. Because yeah, Yeah, I don't, you know, you could potentially do that, but um, when you start boiling the alcohol and you start dealing with higher proofs and stuff, then you're definitely going to start leaching out some microplastics. And you got the higher concentration, you got the temperature softening it. It's just nah, man. It's just there's too many cheap alternatives. You know, I'd rather use a oil drum. Really, I'd rather use steel than carbon steel or something than that. It's just the microplastics are so bad. Your body can deal with that metal, and it's not good for you. It's going to give you Alzheimer's and it's going to give you other issues. But the microplastics, it's going to fry your liver. It's not. It doesn't go away. It's inert once it gets into your system, and it's bad enough some of the water we drink has it in it. But yeah, it's something that's a lot of people are going to start paying a lot more attention to in the future. Yeah, you can limit the impact of over oaking by diluting it with more alcohol, and I wouldn't say it would totally fix it, but it definitely would make it much more tolerable, right? For sure. Yeah, not at all. Not at all. Don't do it, bro. It's just not worth your health and the risk involved. It's just these steels are cheap. Keg, $35. Hell, the barrels are about the same price as a keg, so yeah, I wouldn't do it, bro. Welcome, brother, man. You're an essential part of this duo, man. This isn't just a Bad Santa show. It's Distilling 101 Q&A with Clint and Joe. That's why you don't see my name in the title. It's not just about me. We all learning from each other and helping each other, and we're sharing the hobby together. That's what we're here for, and to help each other, and we're all learning. We're learning a lot from each other. That's what I. You've started in the right place, brother. You've made the right start. First things first. What do you want to make? What kind of liquor do you like to drink? Do you like vodka best? Do you like whiskey best? Gin, rum, whiskey? That's the first question. But we're going to start with what do you like to drink, and we're going to call you. Well, we're going to call you Tremaine or TB. What do you like to drink, TB? Yeah, you definitely came to the right place. I'm gonna scroll down to see the response. Yeah, I like the little limbics too, man. Little onion stills, man. Those are nice. I like them too. They're really good for brandies and whiskeys. They retain a lot of flavor, and they don't kick it. 130, 40 proof, maybe about what you get out of them, and that's perfect for brandies and whiskeys. That's right where you want to be. You don't need that high proof stuff. What you got going on, TB? What kind of alcohol do you like, brother? We can definitely get you fixed up because what I was showing earlier, this is where you should start, and you really don't need to graduate for this or this. You can start here, intermediate, beginner, intermediate, and when you're turning out good liquor, why, other than want more, you know, more of it, why would you want to change? So and if you want more of it, you can make a bigger one, or you can just get two and just run them back to back, or just run it continuously. When you get done with the first one, dump it, pour in more, and just keep going. Put your drain in it. That way you don't have to pick it up to dump it, wait for it to cool. You can just dump it right out. That's my biggest issue though with both of them is neither have a drain in the bottom of it. So that would help. The old Vevers used to have one. I don't know why they discontinued that. I think maybe they had some issues with the plastic in the ball valve getting hot and becoming less functional. I don't think they had a really good ball valve in there to begin with, but they kind of got away from that, which is okay too because that's one less potential leak point. But either of those out there, great place to start, bro. and we can help. I can take you and Clint. We can take you step for step on telling you how to go to the store to pick out the best corn and buying amylase, bring it home, what temp to cook it, exact process step for step, and show you exactly everything you need to do as long as you can maintain a certain temperature. And you can read a thermometer, you can read a hydrometer, which is basically like reading a thermometer. Just look at the numbers, tell us what the numbers is, and you'll learn what those numbers mean. It's not that hard. I mean, it is a little bit scientific, and the more scientific you can make it, the better that you can make it more consistently. But it doesn't have to be that hard, and we make the science easy. Is what we do. We put it in simple terms, and we could browbeat people with really, high scientific, big words, long words, and all this, and try to impress people. But I'm not about impress people. I'm here to educate people and make it easy for them. And that's unfortunate when you go to a lot of places to learn. They're more interested on impressing you than they are educating you, and that's not what we're here for. Yeah, yeah, Clint's out. You do want a decent sized pot because these little teeny tiny, 5 gallon. I would never recommend anything less than a 10. Um, I just wouldn't. They're so difficult, especially the little Vever 3 pots. There's so much work going involved just to make them work well enough to make good liquor. And then when you do, it's hard as hell to make the cuts. And then after all the trouble that you went through and expense and time and trouble you went to, you're left with one fucking jar. You could go through the same trouble. You just add a little bit more water and a little bit more corn. How long does that take? A few minutes, and quadruple your production. And it takes as long. I've seen people take 10 hours to distill all the way through their tails on a 5 or 10 gallon stills. It takes to do on a 20 or 50. Running the same way. So it's definitely, if you want to make it worth your while, go with at least a 10 or better. I would never recommend anything less than a 10. 20, 15 keg size, 18 and a half beverage size, perfect. You get plenty of product. You get 2.5, 2.5, 3 gallons. You know, and that's a decent run, and that's it's good. Yep. And the cheapest is corn, but it's a little bit more difficult, Chris. And you're right. It's for simplicity, sugar, water, yeast, little nutrient, little little crushed coral, or oyster shells to go in there to keep it from crashing. But yeah, it's very simple, and it makes a hot liquor, but it's good. You put it on a column, clean it up a little bit, age it, and get the bottles cleaned off. It's not too bad, but yeah, it's very easy. It's very simple, and I've drank a lot of sugar shine. Uh-oh. I'm telling you, man, it's just, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just so much more difficult when you have something less than 10 and you're going through the same motions, right? You're cooking the same, it's all the same amount of time pretty much spent, but one gives you a gallon versus three, and it's just, and it's not that much more time and expense to just triple your production. And it's efficiency. It's an efficiency thing. And enjoyable. A lot of people, it's like, wow, I went through all that, I did all that, and all I got was the quart. And it's just like, is all that really worth a quart of liquor? I spent all this money. I can just go buy a quart for $15 at the store. So that starts weighing in. I can get that Evan Williams. It's $15-$20 a quart. It's pretty damn good stuff. It's like, how many quarts could I got for that $200 steel and that 300? Just doing this, start adding it all up. It's like, man, I could just bought a lot of liquor. So it has to be an efficiency thing, for me, because I'm that tight. But I think there'll be a day and time that that 8 gallon you got is going to be a thumper for a 20 or a 30 gallon still that you got. But it is, I agree. The small steels is so much more. But if you do learn to make cuts on a small steel, you'll be even better on a big one. So it is good for the practice of cutting because it's very hard and you do get a lot of smearing. You do. You absolutely do, Mash Bro. And you'll use that 5 gallon, it'll become your thumper. Get your keg or one of these favorite footballs, and that 5 gallon will become your thumper, or your infusion chamber, whatever. But it's just so much, and the 5 gallon steels, the 150 you spend on them, you spend 50, 70 more and get this, triple the output. It's just it's just more efficient and it makes better cuts and it makes better liquor. And the bigger the steel you got, the easier it is to make the cuts. And I think because of that, people tend to make better liquor because they try to. Everybody wants to get as much as they can, right? So they kind of cheat, and if you're not aging, you really don't want to get those heads and tails in there. If you're aging, having those low tails or low heads and high tails, like we talk about, is okay. But um, yeah, you can get you a keg. Yeah, I know, man. And that's the way, for me, I never was able to do a barrel because it just never, it was never around long enough to make a barrel. I'd make a few gallons and what I didn't sell or give away, I would drink, so. Um, the grain, the grain flavor diminishes with each generation. So if you don't supplement fresh grains, it just becomes diluted and eventually you're just basically back to a sugar wash, right? Because the grain's just not adding any grain flavor anymore. It's just, it's giving up everything it can flavor wise. It's just waterlogged and it's not giving you anything. It's just taking up space. So that's why I say every time, deviate from that USS JSSM and take 10% out, cook 10%, put it in there, convert it, get some natural sugars in there that'll help the flavor so much. And do that every time, and then you'll develop that consistency. And you can cook it on a little pot on the stove after that because it's just a little bit, 10%. You were talking, if you got a pretty decent sized stock pot, you can cook it, whip that up on your stove. You don't have to go out and break out the garden hose and the turkey fryer and all this stuff. You can just go in on the stove and easily, cook up. Then you can throw a little oats in there with it and help soften it up some. It's awesome. Yeah. But you want to do that because once you start getting into the fifth, sixth, seventh generation without doing that, yeah, you've lost all your grain flavor and it's just not contributing anything anymore. Might be feeding the yeast a little bit, but that's going to be about it. Yeah, I love that. I love that little bever. It's so handy and it's lightweight. Um, Good little stainless pot. I will say probably wouldn't be the best for putting like on a fire or some, coal fired or something like that, something really hot, probably cause it to delaminate. I've seen some delaminated from that. So it's fine on a turkey fryer or on the stove top. If you have a proper stove or a gas stove, it works just fine. Is it? I tell you what, man, I started out on a small little on a pressure cooker actually. I don't know, it's big quart that was 32 quart maybe or something like that. It wasn't huge, but it was is probably I'm guessing maybe 3 to 5 gallons. Yeah, it was small and it made shitty liquor that I scorched half the time and it was all smeared up and I drank a lot of heads and we didn't give a shit. We was kids and we didn't know any different. And we made our own liquor and we tickled to death and got drunk. Right, right. Yeah, it's just not. It loses its character. It's basically after that you're just making a sugar wash and it's not getting any flavor. So just supplementing 10% each time will definitely, get it to where you can do it all summer long. Just keep adding to it, getting the pattern. Check your pH. To how much back set you're going to add. Add that hot water and sugar, not hot water. I should heat up some water, melt your sugar, let it cool. Add that because you don't want to kill all the yeast off. If you add that hot water to it, it'll kill your yeast. If you add hot back set to it, it'll kill your yeast. And that kind of defeats that purpose of not having to add more yeast or nutrients every time, right? So you got the nutrients there, but you don't want to have to add yeast every time, so that gets an expense. So if you just don't add high proof tails from your back set, because if you want to run your back set out, get all your tails out of it, you don't want to put high proof on it, and don't put hot water with sugar on it because that'll kill the yeast off and affect it and give it off flavor from just the get go. But um, yeah, just keep adding that to it and 10% each time. Just take out a scoop, put in a scoop. Yeah, and just get it done, man. It's just it's not join up the DIY Shine and Steel Building on Facebook, and in the file section in there, I've got a little how to, and it take each step by step how to make a simple corn mash using amylase. You'll need to buy some high temp amylase. You can get that at fieldbillymoonshine.com or Amazon, a few places carry it, but Fieldbilly, help her buddy. And and it might cost $1 more or two, but you're helping a brother instead of the corporate, whoever. Uh, but yeah, and it's a good product. Uh, but yeah, we can get you going, man. Cheap and easy. It's a lot of enjoyment. But I got the how to from step by step by step. Breaks it down. Just follow the instructions. After you do it a few times, you'll understand why everything, and then you know. But there are a few little things that you need to buy up front. We go over that as well, and you're going to need to get you some pH paper. You get on Amazon and look up kombucha, which is basically a fermented tea. They deal with low pH just like we do in fermenting because it's just same. It's a fermented product, so it's perfect. A little paper. That way you don't have to deal with a pen and calibration and all that bullshit. Did that, been there, don't. It just adds to the misery and the expense. Don't need it. Um, if you want to get all scientific and geeky, you can, and it's all fun. But really, after a while, it just becomes an expense and a pain in the ass. So the papers are simple. Dip it in there, look at it, match the colors, throw it away. You're done. I got tired of cleaning it with distilled water and calibrating it and adding the calibrating solution to calibrate. And it's like, fuck all that, $9 pen. And I'm spending the same on a big wheel of paper. Just tear off a little half-inch, put the tweezers on it, stick it in there and swish it around, pull it out, match up the colors real easily. Boom. And in fact, I'll show you on Amazon, I'll show you a picture of it. But it's real easy. So you'll need that. You'll need your hydrometer, which is a triple scale hydrometer. And we can, I should add pictures to that how to. I guess I could do that. Um, Add some pictures to show you what I'm talking about and what you need to get. But yeah, we can get your own, brother, and we can take the worry away. So I like the fact that you're worrying because you have enough intelligence that this is something that you need to learn about before you do. Some people just go into it willy nilly, not giving a fuck, don't care, and those are the ones that end up blowing themselves up or poisoning themselves, right, or doing something crazy, um, or experimenting with something and doing something wrong without thinking about it, right? So you got to respect the craft. You got to respect it and realize that there are some inherent dangers involved, and we eliminate those, right? We can definitely hook you up on the neutrals for sure. Yeah. What's going on, Herbie? Good to see you, brother. Cheers. I think that's about like, isn't that's basic same thing as calling shots. I'm pretty damn sure that's what he said. Cheers, brother. or I don't know. I'm assuming a gender by the name there. It could be a Herbie, or Herbie. Either way, choose. Man, I need to slow down on that. I need to drink it up. I won't have any more to drink. He does have really good quality amylase. Definitely. Now, I've heard a lot of people getting some off Amazon that just they had to use a lot more because it's probably been there a while. So yeah, Philby does have good quality stuff for sure. And he's the one that makes all this. He's the one that pays the podcast. He's the head of the Moonshine Militia. This is the Moonshine Militia podcast. You know, we podcast under that banner and on his StreamYard. And he pays over $100 a month just for this podcast stream, so we can stream on here. And he doesn't get on here and do it. He does it for us. So yeah, and I enjoy helping pay him back for that. So if you got parts and stuff you need, especially if you're close by, because shipping, he has the best prices on most everything. It's just shipping that kills you, right? So if you live close to Ohio, Kentucky, and you can drive there, or Indiana, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, it's not far. But when you do, make it worth it. Go and buy a bunch. That way you don't have to drive back and forth because the gas is money too. So just plan a trip and just, get a shitload of corn, get all the parts, all the stuff you need, all the amylase, everything you need. Put your amylase in the fridge. It'll keep for a couple of years. And yeah, make the trip worth your while and you can save a lot. Because shipping is what it can't help it, but 50 pounds of corn is 50 pounds of corn and it costs X amount to ship. It's just, just all there is to it. 25. This was, I'm going to pull it up just because you said that. But it's like $12. It's kombucha and it is accurate as I need. It's awesome. I love it. And actually, I couldn't find my roll. I looked everywhere and I couldn't find it, so I bought another one. And of course, right after the fuck I did that, I found the old roll. So now I have two, but it'll get used. Keep in a cool, dry place and a cool, dry, dark place, and it won't fade and it'll last forever. Let's see. I can search it real quick on here. pH. All right, here. I'll just make a little screenshot of it. I don't need to share my screen, but damn it, that wasn't a good screenshot. Shit. Oh, it's gone down in price a little bit. Good time to order, folks. I'll make sure this doesn't have any of my private information on here. All right, it doesn't. And here we go. Let's see. Let's get rid of that. That's blocking the chat. There we go. Hydrion, and it's 15-foot roll, and I guess 15 times 12 is 180. So it's 180 uses. I use half inch. They say, it's an inch. You get 180 uses. I don't need a whole inch to tell me what color it is. I use a half inch of it. I get 360 uses. I just hold that with tweezers and stick it in there and swish it around and then match the colors up. But you can see by the colors on this that it's pretty easy to tell your pH, whereas other pH papers are pretty not as distinguished in color differences as these are. And I'll get you a little better close up of that just the packaging so you can see. And it doesn't, what we're doing is doesn't have to be scientific, right? It's not that exacting, but this is $10 and it lasts for a long time, 360 mashes or 360 tests. So you'll test maybe 2 or 3 times per each mash distillation, right? So, you know, yeah, you'll test your water before you do your conversions, right? You'll test it again right before you add the yeast, and then so you at least use it a couple times. But yeah, it's I'll never buy another pen for this. Yeah, this will be a little better. So, you hold it up there, it's 5.3 is kind of green to medium green. Once it gets pale green, you're a little low, but look at the difference between 4.5 and 3.0 or 3.0 and 2.5. It goes from yellow to orange pretty quickly. So it's accurate enough to when we can tell when our yeast is going to be stressed. If it starts getting into the oranges, we know we should have added those oyster shells like Bad Santa said. We didn't add them. Now we're in the orange. We're out of the greens and lime greens and lemons. But yeah, it's very easy to tell the differences and works great. I highly recommend it for $10. Well, money well spent. Yeah, and the glucoamylase that you're adding late, like Mark's talking about, it's debranching as it ferments, right? Just like the yellow label angel yeast, it's got that in it. So it's actually breaking, debranching as it converts it, as it eats it. So the yeast are sitting there waiting around. Okay, waiting on you, glucose. Can you speed up a little bit? We're hungry. So it's breaking them up and debranching as you used to eat them. So yeah, the glucose does the same thing as it's actually. So when you do, your final gravity reading, starting gravity and stuff, it's not the true gravity because you're actually going to get some more sugars out of it. But the gravity reading is it doesn't show fermentable sugars. It's just showing you total sugar. So, it's going to show what it hasn't broken down yet because it's still a sugar. It's just not a simple sugar, right? Yep. You want to put your deflag and condenser on there too because you want to clean them up as well. But you don't have to run the condenser water or the coolant through your deflag or your condenser. Just blast the vinegar and do it outside, or at least point that condenser out the window if you can. I know it gets us all, man, and it does it on words that were, it's yeah. Clint is Captain Spell Check. Absolutely, brother. What's going on? They're acting like he's a newbie here. How's it been going, brother? Hope you and yours have a good holidays, my friend. Acting like he's just coming for the first. Can I ask my question? uh, Actually, that's why I preach the. I'm glad you asked. I was just talking about the crushed oyster shells. So if we use those, it would probably pretty much 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 11 eliminate the need for that. But when pH does get low, it's much better to stress the yeast with baking soda, or better yet, pickling lime, than to let the acidity just get low. Now, one thing that we have to understand is during the fermentation process, the acidity level is going to decrease, right? So that's not a bad thing, and it's not something that we want to keep it at 5.3 the whole time. So we're going to add this and keep it at 5.3. That's no, don't do that. It's going to naturally drop as organic acids are created. That's just part of the fermentation process. So don't do that. But once, now high sugar washes, tequilas, rums, anything that you're using a lot of sugar, if you got like a fake brandy that's got a little bit of fruit and a whole lot of sugar, or thin mash like I used to do, had tendencies to crash because it just had a lot of sugar and a little bit of cornmeal in there. Yeah, using those crushed oyster shells will help immensely, and it'll help prevent that because it buffers it. But it's not something that you could throw in there when it starts getting low, because it's something that you have to do as a preventative measure instead of a corrective measure. Now, when you're talking about baking soda, best to use pickling lime if you can get that. It doesn't create a lot of oxygen in the environment, which kind of stresses the yeast and make them go into reproduction instead of eating and pissing alcohol like we want them to do. So, but it's better to do that than to let them stress from the low acidity levels and go crazy low. But it's best to add it slowly and just a little bit at a time. It'll foam up like crazy. It's the volcano. But if you're about done in your fermentation and it's like 3.5, don't worry about that. It's okay. That yeast can handle that pH. It's not going to stress it that much to where it's going to kick off all flavors. If it gets below 3, then Houston, we have a problem, right? And especially if you're early on in fermentation, like sometimes, in the right in the very middle of a sugar wash, it can crash like that. And if that's the case, then yeah, you're going to have to add some pickle lime, and it's just add it as you need to finish off you know, to finish it off, and that way you don't add too much because it's just going to go back down again. So just add it, just spoon feed it, basically just spoon feeding it to keep it at about 3.5, and you go through a bit more of the pH paper for that. But it's definitely best to get those oyster shells and boil them up, clean them up, and wrap them up in a big old cheesecloth bag and tie them up, throw them in there, and it won't lower the pH, but as the acid levels build, they'll start eating away at that calcium carbonate, and they'll neutralize themselves, right? And that'll definitely solve that problem. Uh, and if it doesn't, you didn't use enough oyster shells, and use more next time. Yeah, they're all right. Yeah, they're fine. Any little copper steel. I prefer the stainless. Um, we found that you can use a copper mesh in the distillation path, in the vapor path of your column or wherever in your head or the football. You can pack that with this mesh. Let me show you a picture of it. Just one second, and I'll show you what to get too. This is definitely the good stuff. I've bought it a few times on here, so you can look it up by this screenshot. This is off Amazon as well. I don't think Phil has this either. Currently unavailable. Oh shit! Good thing I got a bunch, but it's like 5 inch by 50 feet, and you only use a little bit each time. So, and you clean it, so you reuse it, so you get a good use out of it. But you want to make sure that it is pure copper, right? And that's the um, yeah, that's not the one. That's not it. Yeah, you want to make sure that it says pure copper. I think this is the one. I just searched copper mesh on Amazon and see, trying to figure out. And it varies in price, but you just want to make sure that it says pure copper. But I'm just going to show you a picture of it so you know what I'm talking about. But you just make sure that you get a pure copper mesh and not copper plated steel, because that's a problem, and it gets messy. This is copper mesh like this, and you just take it off this roll, and you'll make a looser roll. That's a pretty tight roll. So you just roll it a little more loosely into a 2 inch roll, and shove that into your sight glass that's at the bottom of this. See right here, that little sight glass. it looks like it's already it's got a little copper mesh inside of that. See that? So instead of having to have a copper steel, you can just use that copper mesh in the vapor path, and you can put some in this right above this deflagmator in this column, that little spool that's above the deflagmator, deflamator, whatever. You can put some of this copper mesh in there as well. And actually, you get as good contact with that, with the vapor touching that copper. What happens is the sulfite bonds that copper just like that. It's just like magnet. It just loves it. It bonds directly to it. It happily leaves the vapor path to bond to that, and it bonds quite well. So after you do that, just take your copper mesh out, set it in the little jar full of water, rinse it out real well under the sink, put it in a jar full of water, and drip you some citric acid in there, some lemon juice, whatever, and it'll eat a lot of that tarnish off, and then just rinse it out, dry it out, and reuse it a few times. And then once it gets to the point where it's just, all green and yucky, just starch in another one. It's cheap. It's, it's cheaper than having to buy all copper steel. But claw hammers, fine. Those, hell, they've been around for ages, man. I mean, when I was a kid, they were in the back of a comic book, man. They've been around for ages. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to do it inside, man. That steam sticks to every. If you do it inside, like in the kitchen or something, you'll have that vinegar on every surface in the whole kitchen, on your appliances, on your cabinets. It's that steam, and it condenses. It's not something you want your wife to come home and see. It's Let me just say that. Absolutely, it'll definitely mature. Well, when it's pure like that, I'll take that back. When it's pure like that, it will age, but it's not. There's not a lot of water. There's not a lot of oils. There's not a lot of other things in there because it's pretty much pure ethanol at that point. So you're not going to, and that's ABV. That's 96%. So that's as high as you can get pretty much without being in a vacuum. Um, so yeah, it's not going to age and develop because it doesn't have those oils, and it doesn't have much acid and all that in it. It's just pure. You don't have much heads, and you don't have much tails in there because it's just pure alcohol. No water, no hydrosols, no other things, no phenolics. There's no reservadols. There's no hydrosols. There's no nothing in there. It's just ethanol. So you're not going to get that type of aging. If you put it in a barrel, you can get some barrel quality, characteristics out of it, and it's going to lower and proof. But yeah, in a glass, it's not going to change much at all. Good question. Right? Yeah, the sodium. Yeah, the yeast just don't like that sodium. Sodium will kill yeast. That's like sodium benzoate is a preservative used to keep yeast and funguses and bacteria from building up. Right? That's preservative. And yeah, so sodium's no bueno. But if pickling lime, definitely it's better. It will if you take the cap off, it will absorb moisture out of the air. If you can follow me, that's why pure 200 proof alcohol can only exist in a vacuum, all right, or in a sealed container, because once you open it up and expose it to air, it's what's called a hygro, hygro, not hydro, hygroscopic, and it's like a desiccant. It starts absorbing moisture out of the air. That's why when you drink that pure grain alcohol that's 190 proof, that's why it parches your throat and your skin and everything that it touches so much, is because it's sucking the moisture literally out of your skin. And it's hazardous. It's not safe. So that's what's happening. So when you open up a jar and air it out like we do to air out the higher volatiles, there's no higher volatiles in there. This is pure ethanol at that point. And So you just evaporate the alcohol and in bringing in water. And when you do that, that will mellow it out. But I don't think it will get any smoother or change much at all, because there's no esterification going on in there. There's no chemical processes going on because it's pretty much just pure. And you really need these other things in there. That's why I talk about aging, how you need to hint into the heads a little bit and into the tails a little bit to get those acids, and those oils to esterify to create. And we're going to talk about that a lot this weekend. So definitely tune in on this weekend on the 20th, and we're going to go into a lot about the aging process and what aging does. But yeah, with a pure product like that, you're not going to get a lot of aging per se. Now it might get a little smoother, and that may just be a natural light drop in proof from sucking what air it can out of the jar. But yeah, it's not going to do quite like a lower proof product that has impurities in it, which is these impurities are a good thing. It's usually you say impurities is a negative connotation, but in this case, it's not. And you really need those to create some of the compounds necessary for these chemical reactions to take place. It's not stuck. If it's in the high fives, low fours with and even with bread yeast, that's not stuck. So it's probably a temperature thing, Red. Um, yeah, it's probably a temperature thing. Don't worry about the pH is fine in the fives and fours. Don't worry about it unless it gets below 3. It's fine. Temperature, I would say, is 99 out of everybody that gets stuck in the fall, winter is that it's just colder than they think it is, and it's just slowing down because of the temperature. So it's not stuck, it's just slowing down unless it's below 70 degrees and into the 60s, in which case it may very well be stuck and just dormant, not so much stuck, it's just dormant. But check your temperature and tell us what kind of yeast you're using and the temperature, and that's going to be based on that. We can tell you what the best temp's going to be, but 9 times out of 10 this time of year it's just temperature. It's not your pH at all, especially if it's in the fives and fours. It's not. Don't worry. Don't put that in there. And when I say when people get said, okay, you want 5.3, you want 5.2 or 3, they think that it has to be that throughout the whole time, and a lot of people don't explain that's the starting point. So it will naturally get more acidic over time, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing because as it becomes more acidic, less and less bacteria can form, which allows it to be a cleaner product without the bacteria and other funguses and other things, starting out. So we want that. So that's the environment that we want to create. Like when you can a lot of vegetables and stuff, if you don't have tomatoes or other things in there that are bringing the pH down, you literally have to add citric acid to it to preserve, right? And it's the same thing here. And that's why to keep these things from building up and developing bacteria and stuff. So yeah, you got a temperature issue 9 times out of 10, bro. Check your temps. Let me know what temperature it is. Yeah, they suck, and you have to keep checking them and calibrating them, and just I gave up on them. I don't know how many of them old yellow 9.95 pens I bought off Amazon and used those, and they were good for 4 to 6 weeks and then a few months, and then they weren't so good, and then some last you almost a year. Yeah, the seashells won't. It's not an instant reaction, so you can't just throw them in something low pH and have it instant because it's just not that type of thing. In fact, if you take calcium carbonate and just take the powder and pour it on water, it just float on the top. If you try to stir it with a spoon, it'll just stick to the spoon. It does not like water. It's hydrophobic as hell. Uh, so you really have to allow it a long time to mingle, but it's a buffer. It's not a pH reducer. It's a buffer. So as the acids build up, it'll eat away at that. But yeah, it does not mix into the water real readily and help that in that sense. So you just have to have them in there from the very get go. It's not a corrective measure. It's a preventative measure. And when you need to add something to bring it up, that's a corrective. But again, natural pH drops is natural. So don't chase that pH and try to keep it at 5.3 the whole time. That's actually something you don't want to do. You'll end up creating more problems than you had. So, um, but redneck, I think basically temperatures what the issue is. So get a little oil filled. If you're inside, it's just in a cool area of the house or something. Set a little closer to when it gets you a little oil filled heater, and I love those. I can set it. I can get them big 40-gallon barrels full of corn mash and set that thing in the middle of 3 or 4 of them. It'll keep all of them warm in the room too. So at the same time, you help heating the house and keeping stuff warm, but also put a little something underneath the bottom of them. Even if it's just bubble wrap or wood or anything, keep it off that concrete floor. That'll help keep that cold from transferring from the floor too. Yeah. I gave up on those things. I used to use them for other things, and they were good for that. But I just use pH paper for fermentation. Oh, you'll definitely have them left over because it just eats away what it needs. So it just barely lead away at them. So when you get done, just rinse them out real well. Take them and put them in a little bucket, rinse them, mix them up real good, clean them up, and you'll be good to go for the next time. If you feel bacteria may build up, which they can, you can just boil them up right before you get ready to use them, and let it cool as you're doing your other things. You can boil that as you're boiling your water to mash with, right? No pouch and all, and cheesecloth and all. Just dig it out of there and set it off to the side and do your mash thing. And when you get done with your mash, just throw them right in there, right? Or whatever you're cooking up. Even if you're dissolving sugar in hot water, you got to get it hot. Throw that bag in there, let it get hot with it, kill everything off that's on it. And yeah, that's the way to go for sure. And it's cheap. You can get a big old 40-pound bag for like 10, $12 at Tractor Supply and other places. It's used for chickens, right? And to supplement their diet, give them calcium for their eggshells. So yeah, it's cheap, and I just like to boil mine just for peace of mind and to get any bacteria out of my ferments. I don't like that shit. So yeah, I can't stand them. Well, I used to grow a little bit of weed here and there from time to time, so they were great for that, because I needed a little bit more exacting numbers. But I went through a lot of pens, doing that. But for mashes, it's not that critical. I just but it was for the hydroponics. Yeah, it's critical that I keep the pH at a certain level. No, the cornmeal, just regular cornmeal, but the lime, this is pickling lime, and yeah, it's the stuff that you use in canning, and yeah, that'll work to help bring the pH up. Um, the pH up if it gets acidic, but best to use the shells if you can. Hey, Miss Tammy, I was wondering about you. You on here late? We are on here late. We're gonna have to cut this off. It's getting late, and we going a little over. I think we get shut off by 10 tonight, but I love it. As long as we got questions and we got activity going on, man, I'll stick around a while. Hell, back in the old days, I'd podcast till the next morning, man. I was just get drunk, go on and on and on till 8, 10 o'clock the next morning. People come on. Are you still on here? Hell yeah, man. People, as long as they're still asking questions. Yeah, but yeah, I try to cut it off now. Frozen Chaniga. I don't know. Frozen Chaniga, man. It's a new one on me. I love that spill check. Oh man, that sounds like some kind of heirloom corn, maybe. Chaniga, a Cieniga. I don't know. Yeah, they are. And I've got a good one and a good TDS meter, and but you still have to go through the process of calibration and dealing with that. This was not a $9 pen; it was like an $89 pen, and they're pretty nice. Actually, it's just in another room there, but yeah, I just soon use the paper for this. It's not that exacting, and it's all you need. Yeah, I can tell by that damn picture. Y'all know I need my beauty rest. You can see me, man. I definitely need it, especially if it helps me grow some hair back. Yeah, my old lady gets up at that time too, JJ. She got to be up at 5 and work by 6. So yeah, yeah. Anytime you got a fermentation that stinks, you got butyric acid. That's a natural. It's not something you want, but it's something that stress yeast causes, and it smells like vomit. So if you got something that smells like vomit, it's a butyric acid. Lactic acid can sometimes smell that way as well. It smells like spoiled milk. It's lactic acid, lacto, and so yeah, yeah. I tell you, Wayne at Ozark makes a really nice sub pot. He makes a real nice. He does some really high quality work. Uh, he makes a really nice stainless sub pot. Actually, some of the best I've seen. He does real high quality work. So if you know Wayne at Ozark, he's definitely one to get up with if you're looking for a little stainless sub pot, or a lot of other parts too. He does fine work. He does high quality work. He's definitely a craftsman. His seams, I got a whiskey thief and a funnel off of him. You can't even see the seam in that funnel where he soldered it. He did like a butt solder and a polish. And you can't even see where the seam is, man. That's how fine the work he does, man. I mean, you have to get the old, and give it that to even find it, right? He does real good work, man. Overkill, really, probably. But hey, if he's willing to get that anal and put that type of quality into it, damn sure I'll definitely buy it every time. So he definitely some of the highest quality work you'll see in the industry. But I figure he'll be probably doing some bigger and better stuff and real soon, for sure. He'll start getting some contracts from some big distillers to make some big pots because he does really good work, especially with those subs like that. We talked about putting an agitator. I keep trying to get him to use this magnetic drive. That way you don't have to worry about a pass through and a hole and having the gear and all that. Just using magnetic on the outside and a wheel on the inside. That way you don't have anything except of course it'll have to have a shaft welded in that it spins on, but you can use that magnetic through it and not have any protrusions. No, he's not listening to me. So one of these days he'll listen. I hope he's listening right now. Wayne, need that. I think it'd definitely be the way to go. But get those sub pots and get them moving to still on the grain and keep that flowing so it doesn't stick to the bottom. Man, it'd be awesome. But he's got this technology uses air. So he's got like I guess lines going across the bottom with holes and air's constantly being forced through it, so it's bubbling and keeping anything from sticking, and it's keeping everything moving and churned up on the bottom. That works well too. So he's trying a lot of different things, but I really think just to create that natural flow that the submarine pots want to do, if they had like a little magnet wheel, we're operating a paddle wheel on the inside, I think that'd be the bomb. And Mark's going over there right now. I'm just scrolling down to you, brother. Yeah, it cost in the sheet metals. I said I used to use just regular old galvanized, just regular old steel sheet, and it was easy to build that wood frame. And a lot of the steels were used because of the ease of manufacture. Copper steels were used because it was easy to solder them up. They would have used stainless if they could have gotten stainless, but they didn't have welders back then. But just everybody didn't have a welder. Everybody could get a damn soldering torch and and solder. So um, the submarines were so easy to make with just a sheet without having to worry about soldering or welding or any of that, and just get one long sheet, go all the way up to the top, and the only seam would be at the top. You didn't have to worry if that leaked or not because that just paste that in, right? So you just solder it and glue it. Just they did everything, man. It's just it wasn't to the quality of what we do today. But yeah, it did. It had a natural flow inside there, and that's what I was talking about using those wheels is to keep that natural flow going. Before it becomes a natural flow, right? You can have that current going before it boils, because that once it boils, it starts turning in that direction, and that was one of the big pros of the sub pods. Yeah, and it's the way to go. It is. Just throw them in there, and it's a preventative measure. It won't. And I mean, if you use enough, it just won't. The acid will eat away. If you have enough in there, the acid will eat away at it, and it'll help buffer it, neutralize it. It's very similar to the 5.2 powder, except a lot less expensive. It buffers just the same. Yeah, only if they're used right. Got to be used pantyhose. You can't use the foot part, man. You got to use the top part, right? Hell yeah. All right. All right, we're at 11:30. We're gonna have to call her a night. No, I never did get a chance to make popcorn. No, I wished I would have. Sure wish I would have. We'd had a good time. I can tell you that. Me, him, and Digger, and all of them. We'd have partied down. I was a wild man when I was younger. Believe it or not. Yeah, I used to. That's right. Unless you were a size too small, like a lot of people do, and they don't cover enough ass. They get them granny panties. All right, y'all. It's 11:30. I'm definitely gonna have to give her a call. But it's a great night. Get to have a lot of good questions. More usually get more questions on Saturday than a Tuesday. A little slower usually, but I love it. Get new people in here, get more in here, and love getting the questions asked, and it lets me know there's a lot of lurkers out there listening, and finally they're chiming in, so they're thinking about this a little harder than they used to. And I think before they were just trying to think, well, is this going to be something that I'm going to be into or not? And then after they listen to it, they're like, I think I can do this, and you can. It's just not that hard, and I try to make it sound simple, and sometimes I might make it sound hard, but once you read the step by step that I got laid out, there's really nothing hard about it. And if you get a copper steel, the only hard thing about it is keeping it clean. That'll be your hardest thing is keeping that thing clean. How'd you know, Scurb? You nailed me, bro. I'm gonna get on there and get me. I gotta get a few hours in. There's a competition going on right now, and as of before I took a little nap this afternoon, I was 71st out of thousands. So I'm not on the top 100 now, but I was at 71 uh, in this little tournament thing they have going on, but I had to take a little break. And there's a few more hours of that left. So I want to try to get in there and at least try to break the top 100. But out of the tens of thousands probably that are playing, 71 ain't too shabby. I'll take that. But all right, guys and gals, great seeing everybody. Thanks for dropping in and bringing your questions and having a good time with us tonight. We're going to be back Saturday night. We're going to do a lot of wine, talking about wine and brandy for those that are offended by the wine thing. So if you want to learn about brandy, we got to learn how to make wine first. So we're going to talk about some winemaking and aging of spirits and wine and a lot of the process and the chemical process going on. So we might get a little sciencey. We might throw up some things that some people may have some interest in because I was always afraid of getting too scientific. This might drive people away and just say, "Well, wait, this is just too much for me." And I don't want to do that. But the last time I did it, I had a lot of people like, "Wow, that's awesome," and they were learning some things. So I want to give those people something too. Um, and so we might get a little sciencey, but I'm going to try to explain it on a level that everybody can understand it because all science should be easy to understand. If it's explained right, it should, it all makes sense. So we'll make it make sense, and we should have a pretty good time Saturday, and we're going to try to go over some recipes too. So we're going to have some wine recipes. I'm going to bring some Welch's recipes that we were talking about with JJ earlier about making a decent red wine with some Welch's grape juice. It makes a fine, perfectly good wine, and yeah, and it does. It discourages people. Getting one of them damn 3-pot bevers that has to immediately require new gaskets and new plumbing and new, and having to do all this. It's like, fuck it. They just, about not my lamp over. They just throw that shit away, man. It's like, fuck it, done with it. And I know how I am. After a certain point, hey, I'm done, man. It's fuck this shit. I've got better things to do. So I don't want that. I don't want people to do that. So we're going to try to eliminate a lot of mistakes and steer people in the right direction, to a product that works best, and those little kegs work great and those little football steels are perfect. You know, you'd think I was getting a commission from Bever for how hard I push them. I've literally sold thousands of those son of bitches for them. I pushed them, many over the years. Somebody probably send my damn videos to them and say, look, this dude's pushed your product. You should probably, send him something. uh, but it's great seeing everybody, and everybody be here on this weekend. It's going to be a good weekend, and if not, tune in later, which most people do. And if you're tuning in later, if you can be here this weekend live, we'd love to have you. Most of our listening audience does not watch. We don't have a viewing audience. We have a listening audience. They just listen to us later. They don't get us live, and they don't get asked their questions. But if you can tune in Saturday, because it should be a great show, and we're going to have some visual aids, and we're going to talk about some things that aren't often talked about, and with us, with wine and stuff. So we're going to talk about some brandy making and some wine making, and yeah, we're going to have a good time. So we will see everybody back at 8 o'clock Eastern on Saturday the 20th. And everybody have a great rest of your week. And shine on. Have a good. Love you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you Saturday. Peace out.